works. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of the Planning and Development Council of the Town of Oakville. Madam Clerk, are there any regrets?
There are no regrets this evening.
Council, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? All right, I don't see any, and I will look instead for a mover and seconder to resolve in a committee of whole. Councillor O'Meara and Councillor Duddick, all in favor? Opposed, if any, and that carries, and we are now resolved into committee of the whole. It's a form of a council meeting where the rules are somewhat relaxed, and we can hear the public at greater length than under the rules by which regular council meetings are conducted. Council, as you know, the main event tonight is the holdover item for the downtown. And so I want you to go through the agenda with me now. We have consent items 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And confidential consent item has been, C1 has been withdrawn. And if we skip over the 2 public hearing items and skip over the discussion items 8, 9, and 10, which so many of the public are here for, and then I take you to page 6, item 11, item 12, item 13, item 14. C3 was dealt with at a previous meeting of council last week. C2 and 15. In the interest of having as much time for the public as possible here, which of these items shall we hold for consideration and questions? And I'd like a mover and a seconder for the rest. Councillor Duddick. That's right. Thank you. Thank you. So you're moving all of them. Now, does anyone want to hold any of those? Councillor Elger.
Just number 6, just for clarification, just a 1 minute clarification.
All right. Do you want to ask that right now?
Yes. Yeah, just on item 6, I think there's a couple of housekeeping things that can be fixed in the
Councillor,
report.
I'm sorry. As I said, the public hearing items 6 and 7 we still have to do.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, so we're just the rest. So 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 we have to deal with, and we have a presentation on 6 and 7 and a hearing, and then 8, 9, and 10 are the big discussion items. So any other items that anyone wants to hold? They're moved by Councillor Duddick. Any further? One last chance. Councillor Adams.
Can you just read out the ones that you're dealing with so that we're all clear?
Everything except 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Thank you.
Gone for a final time, calling the vote. All. You're right. I should just check. I've assumed that no one from the public is here for any of these items. Put your hand up and prove me wrong. Second time? Third time? I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Those carry, and that's probably the most efficient part of the meeting. So now, that brings us to our first public hearing item, and that is item number 6, which is the public meeting report and official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision for State View Homes on Calsa Gate. And we have a presentation for this hearing by Paul Barrett, our senior planner. And after the presentation, we'll take questions from council and the public. Mr. Barrett, we're all ears.
I don't need a presentation unless there's people in the gallery here that would like to hear it.
Well, we still have to have a hearing, and so I'm advised that we're on better ground if we. Mr. Barrett, we're really all ears.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. This is a statutory public meeting for an official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and draft plan of subdivision. The report can be found on page 29 of tonight's agenda. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to obtain any further public input related to this application. Staff will return in the future following the comprehensive review of the application with a recommendation report. The subject lands are located in Palermo Village on the east side of Calsa Gate. The site is presently designated as low-density residential. An official plan amendment has been submitted to redesignate the lands to medium-density residential. As a note, on January 24th, 2011, Council received the Palermo Village Streetscape Study, which recommended that the properties located at 2295, 2307, and 2317 Kelsey Gate, being part of the subject lands, be redesignated from low-density residential to medium-density residential. The site is zoned agricultural with special provisions 28 and 29 within bylaw 1984-63. And the site is zoned existing development by bylaw 2014-14. A public information meeting was held on February 26, 2015. One member of the public attended and no comments have been received regarding this application. The slide before council reflects the proposal as submitted by the applicant. 22 townhouse units are proposed on a future common element condominium roadway. The townhouses are proposed to be 3 stories in height. 2 access points from the development to Kelsey Gate are proposed. In conclusion, Your Worship, staff put forth the following recommendation as shown for council's consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Councillor Elgar, you had a question, I believe.
It was just a couple of maybe administrative corrections regarding the location and site description on page 33 of the report. Just so everybody, if that could be corrected, I would appreciate it. There's Kelsey Gate in Pine Glen Road. It says it's on the west side, so if we just say it's on the east side, if that's okay, of the road?
That's correct.
And the VGR building, if it's on the southeast corner instead of the southwest corner, if we could correct that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
So in case you doubted that council reads your reports, now you know they do. Anything else, Councillor? Are there any members of the public here with information for council on this item? Mr. Fay, it's your opportunity.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. I'm here tonight on behalf of Stateview Homes, Ivory Oak Estates Limited, the owner of the property. Just to advise you that the report, which I don't think was drafted by Mr. Barrett, but presented by him, is fine. It is comprehensive in dealing with the issues that have to be dealt with respect to the applications. We're pleased with the progress we're making with respect to this application. I'd be pleased to answer any questions if you have any. Otherwise, I'll let you get on with the business of this evening's meeting.
Thank you very much for the offer. Are there any other members of the, thank you, Mr. Fay. Are there any other members of the public with information for council on this matter? Councillor Elgar.
I'd be pleased to move the staff recommendation.
Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed, if any, and it's carried. Thank you, Mr. Fay. Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Are you up for the next one too?
Yes.
Oh, well, good. The next item is item 7 on the agenda, the public meeting and recommendation report for the town-initiated zoning bylaw amendment on Conseil Scolaire Viamonde, and I'm going to have to apologize afterwards, I'm sure, to the francophones in the audience and on the council. And Mr. Barrett, we're all ears.
Thank you, Mayor Burton and members of council. This presentation will provide a brief overview of the staff report, which provides the full review of the application together with a recommendation. The report can be found on page 57 of tonight's agenda. The subject lands are located on the north side of McCraney Street east of 6th Line, and are occupied by the north campus of the White Oak Secondary School. A memorandum of understanding was endorsed by council in July 2013 that sets out a conceptual arrangement whereby both the town and Halton District School Board will sell their individual portions of the eastern parcel to be amalgamated for use as a new secondary school, and the town will purchase the northern parcel for community use. As you may recall, this zoning bylaw amendment application was previously approved by council on February 10th, 2014 to recognize the existing open space use on the northern portion of the site to be acquired by the town, and to rezone the eastern portion of the lands to permit a new secondary school. However, the implementing bylaw was tabled by council at that time until the land acquisition was further advanced. Now that the land acquisition is further advanced, council can consider the implementing bylaw. However, since the bylaw was tabled by council, a new zoning bylaw was passed, with portions now deemed enforced by the OMB. There have also been some minor boundary adjustments, and the school design has been further advanced. In terms of how these minor changes will impact the site design, the more significant changes include a boundary adjustment at the northeast corner of the site, where the triangular area shown on the current plan will be retained by the town and now zoned O1. Also, a clause has been added to clarify that the general 3-meter landscaping requirement for the rear lot line in the new bylaw does not apply, as it would bisect a portion of the proposed parking lot. In addition, the landscaping requirement along the eastern interior lot line was amended to acknowledge that a 3-meter wide portion of the subject site along the eastern boundary is now being retained by the town for the purpose of preserving the existing pathway connection, which would result in the same overall separation distance. In addition, the holding provision is proposed to be removed as the requirement has been fully satisfied. Also, the formatting and wording of the new bylaw and the proposed regulations have been updated to reflect the definitions and formatting of the new bylaw and to clarify the intent. In conclusion, Your Worship, staff put forth the following recommendation as shown for Council's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Are there questions by council? Are there any members of the public with information on this matter for council? Second time, anyone at all? Third time? Council, I'll look for a motion. Councillor Knoll?
Your Worship, I'll move the staff recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Knoll. Discussion? All in favor?
Your Worship, could we have a recorded vote to show our support for this?
Sure.
Thank you.
On request, any member can have a vote recorded. Please rise to be named and recorded by the clerk. Councillor Adams. Councillor Knoll. Councillor Lapworth. Councillor Elgar. Mayor Burton. Councillor Hutchins. Councillor Giddings. Councillor DeMoff. Councillor Duddick. Councillor Robinson. And Councillor O'Meara. All those opposed, please rise to be named. Councillor Grant. I declare the motion carried. All right, that brings us to the discussion items for the evening, and that's our Downtown Transportation Streetscape Study Final Study Report, the Downtown Parking Garage Feasibility Study, and the Downtown Cultural Hub Update. I think, in the interests of clarity and efficiency, we'll do these one at a time rather than as a batch. And Mr. Cozy, would you like to begin on item 8?
Sure will. Just give me a moment. Okay, good evening, Mayor Burton, members of council, members of the audience. My name is Dan Cozy. I'm the Director of Engineering and Construction. I've been heavily involved in this project for the last year and a half. This is a continuation of a meeting, P&D Council meeting from March, where the entire staff team made an extensive presentation on the results of the Downtown Transportation and Streetscape Study. What I'd like to do tonight is just go over a very short version of that report, or that presentation, on my own. We have with us, though, tonight the entire project team again. I thank them for their involvement in the project throughout and their assistance as well. Our consultant, our lead consultant, Brooke McElroy, is here. Mr. Colin Berman is here tonight. The transportation study, well, actually what I'll begin by saying is the study was launched in late 2013. It was coordinated with the downtown studies. There was an extensive consultation process. I'll get into that briefly in a moment. Our staff project team involved members of staff throughout the organization, and the study itself included a transportation study component, which was completed by Hatchmont McDonald, a well-known transportation consultant. That was completed about a year ago, in June of 2014, and that set the framework going forward on the recommended streetscape master plan. The downtown studies as a whole had one set of objectives and a vision, and that was to create an attractive, active, animated, and vibrant downtown where people come together to live, meet, work, stay, interact, and engage. And the 5 objectives below were served by all the studies. The study area, I'll just briefly outline it. It's the entire downtown as we define it, Robinson Street to the south, the 16 Mile Creek to the north and to the west, and Allen Street to the east. As I mentioned earlier, there was an extensive public consultation process with regards to our DTS study. There were several public meetings, workshops, and stakeholder engagement sessions and interviews. There was a focus group that met regularly. And we also had separate meetings and consultations with the members of the BIA. In total, over 1,500 persons attended those sessions. In addition, over 1,600 persons registered to receive regular downtown e-newsletters. So to say the least, there was quite an extensive public consultation process. The result of our study, which I'm going to get into right away, the results of the study rather, deal with the bullets before you on the screen here, and that is to address facilities for all modes of transportation, so not just the automobile, pedestrians, cyclists, two-way street conversion of the downtown, commercial loading zones, the type of materials and furnishings that we're proposing, parking, the concept of flexible streets, and the various streetscape elements. I know this slide in front of you all is not going to paint a picture of exactly what's going on, but this is just to show you an overall plan has been completed, and this is available on the town's website, and it details the function and how each road will operate. In saying that, there is a cycling network that has been incorporated into the recommendations of the DTS study. There are buffered bike lanes on Robinson and Church Street to create a cycling loop network east to west throughout the downtown. That includes a bike lane on Navy Street south of Lake Shore and on Allen Street north of Lake Shore. South sharrows are proposed on Lake Shore Road itself. I'll get into that in a moment, as well as the one block of Allen Street south of Lake Shore, because the width will not allow us to provide dedicated bike lanes there. Throughout the extensive public consultation process, 3 options were developed by mid-year last year, and we moved forward on those 3 options. The preferred option is what I call a hybrid option, a hybrid version of option number 2. We're calling it option 2A. This provides wide boulevards, about 5.85 meters, parking lanes on both sides, and 4-meter wide lanes on Lakeshore Road with what we're now calling super sharrows, which is just a larger sharrow denotation on the pavement, and they actually have a green background underneath the white logos. Pretty brief, but I did want to talk about Town Square. Town Square was part of this study, and it was resolved through the process of the study that we really couldn't make a decision, a recommendation to council on what we should do with Town Square. Options were developed, but I can tell you that the opinions were quite polarized on Town Square. So the recommendation is that we need to do further work with regards to the programming elements on Town Square, and report back at a future date. Town Square is in need of attention, but we need to do further work on Town Square. I'm prepared to answer questions. Tried to keep this brief. I know we have a long agenda this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Cozy. So to clear things, I think first a word of clarification for the public. We have a number of people who've registered to be delegates, and I will poll the audience as well, so that if you didn't register and you still want to talk, or it comes to you that you want to share information with council, you'll get a chance. Customarily, what we do next is councilors, if they have questions, ask them of staff, and then we hear from the delegations. And when we've heard all delegations, then council attempts to come to a decision. So, council, do any of you have questions? Councilor Adams.
I don't really have a question of staff. It's really, I suppose it's a process question of yourself. We've got a proposed motion that's been put on our desks. I wondered if it would be appropriate, in order for the audience to know what they're talking to, if that could be put up for consideration.
Yes,
or
thank you.
Explanation, perhaps.
That's a good idea. Madam Clerk, would you put that up now? And hello, the bus. There we go. So, you probably all can read it, but for anyone who has difficulty, the first part is that staff be directed to commence the engineering design work for the subsurface features of the Lakeshore Road Streetscape project outlined in the Downtown Transportation and Streetscape Study. Second, that the public be consulted on the surface streetscape features associated with the following options. Option 2A, which you've heard about, and a new option 3A and 3B, which you will hear about in the course of discussion. Number 3, that staff develop alternatives for the phasing of construction for council's consideration. And number 4, that the results of the public consultation on the streetscape options and the construction phasing alternatives be presented to council for decision in the fall of 2015. So with that, Madam Clerk, would you call the first listed delegation? And I wonder, Councillor DeMoff, do you want to put options 3A and 3B out? Maybe that would be the kindest way to do this, and get everything out on the table. So Councillor DeMoff has a rendering of what her suggestions look like. And as I understand it, Mr. Cozy, you might be able to put them up for her on the screen. Or are you going to put them on the overhead? All right. I may have been underinformed. Maybe slide it down a little bit or zoom it out a bit. I'm not sure. So I think you have to do them. Do you want them one at a time, Councillor? So let's put 3A if it's labeled. Anyway, let's put one at a time, please.
I think it's easier if I load them on the screen. Here, if I can have control, it'll be clear.
Good. Please and thank you.
Sorry about that.
So back to the computer instead of the camera.
Well, that's the best I can do.
Well, let's get an expert at work here.
Just as way of background for my colleagues on council and for the public, the difference between the two options, in option 3A, one side of parking is removed and bike lanes are put in that allow for a buffer between the parked cars and the bike lane, something that was not included in the bike lane option that was presented to us before. Option 3B is one that is, I had asked Dan to do something that could be done as a pilot project, so that if they don't work, if business doesn't like them, if whatever reason, we can take them out and put the parking back. So the difference between the two of them is that in option 3B, the bike lanes can be converted back to parking should they not work. So that's the difference between the two of them. And in order to do it as a pilot and then install bike parking back, they have to be wider. So they're 2.2 meters, which is what's required to have parking. So that's the difference, main difference between the two of them. But in order to do it as a pilot, you would need to remove the parking from both sides. As opposed to having bike lanes, you could leave the parking on one side.
Thank you, Councillor. All right, Madam, so we're ready for delegations? I think we're ready. Madam Clerk, please call the first delegation.
First delegation is Charlene Pluman, who is the Executive Director of the Downtown Oakville BIA.
Ms. Pluman, welcome. Council looks forward to any light you can shed on this.
Wonderful. Your Worship, Council, thank you for having me this evening, and thank you to everyone who's shown up here today. I was prepared this afternoon to speak on all three items, so the fact that we are splitting them, bear with me, as when I get to it, I will skip past that, unless, Your Worship, you prefer.
You're welcome. You can do it either way. Councillors can remember.
Perfect. For the sake of everyone's time, then, I will continue to do them all three at once. Thank you. So again, I wish to thank everyone for having me here today, and just thank the council, staff, and the consultants that have put a lot of work into this project and a lot of attention to downtown. So thank you very much for that. And also thank the residents, the businesses, and organizations who are here tonight and who have been involved in this project along the way, because it certainly shows their passion for the downtown. So thank you, everybody, for that. As stated, I'll be speaking to the three areas today: streetscape, garage feasibility, and cultural hub. Overall, the BIA is in favor of the town staff recommendation of option 2A, but we do have some areas of concern which we'll discuss today. We do request that the streetscape be delayed and that the garage be built first, and discussion on garage will follow. Once timelines are established, we do ask that they be firm. We understand that things change, construction changes, problems come up. Considering all of that aside, though, that we stick to the timelines that are set as best to all of our abilities, so that the businesses and landlords can plan appropriately. Looking at option 2A, some of the considerations we'd like to have town look at. One is that we'd like to maintain all the on-street parking throughout the downtown as it exists today. We suggest that Sharrows could go on all streets, so this would be on Robinson and Church as well, and maintain the parking on Navy and George. So as the report stands right now, it's mentioned that Navy and George would be flex streets with parking removed. What we propose is that that stays parking until such time it needs to be flexed, and the parking can be temporarily disallowed. Reasons we're asking for this consideration of maintaining all the on-street parking: there's already a difficulty known in finding parking downtown. It's stated as one of the top 5 reasons in the J.C. Williams study that was completed in 2014 of why people are not returning to downtown. 70% of our guests are arriving by car. We only see 5% by bike. Our customers do indicate a need for convenient parking. In fact, when we talk to our customers, they will move their car 5 or 6 times from place to place to place to place in one visit because they want that convenience. We can continue to use select parking spaces for additional boulevard space as needed. So we are piloting further the patio project that we started last year, and if it's an ongoing project, we can make sure that the look of these temporary structures is consistent with the overall look of downtown, is clean and appealing to the eye and appealing to the users. We know that there's no dedicated bike lanes to get downtown. We love bikers. They do shop. We want them downtown. We'd like some focus on getting them to the downtown with dedicated bike lanes. And then once they're here, they can use the Sharrows that are there or park the bike and walk around. We have noticed that there are studies that indicate that the segregated lanes is a detrimental effect on the economy in the area. There was a study done in Vancouver of their segregated lanes that noted a $2.4 million deficit in business sales a year. And there's also some studies done by John Forrester, who is the author of Effective Cycling, who notes that dedicated bike lanes can in fact be more hazardous than they are safe, because they start to let people feel a little bit more confident than they perhaps should, and they also create needs to cross lanes at times that are at intersections or otherwise unsafe. And again, as mentioned, we're looking at Navy and George, maintain the parking until it needs to be a flex street, and at that point you could limit parking. The other considerations, we'd request some further dialogue on the delivery zones. So while I recognize that other cities do it well, other cities are very different than us, and I haven't heard extensive dialogue on how these delivery zones are going to work. Of note, the size. As listed, it's 2 parking spaces. A lot of our deliveries are done by transport trucks. They don't fit in 2 parking spaces, so I'm looking for some further clarification on how that would work. Likewise, if there's going to be time to allow it to be parking at a later date, several of our shipments come on 1 truck. If they don't get to downtown in time, does that mean they're not coming until tomorrow? And does that mean businesses are without their delivery? I don't have the answers to this. I'm not the expert. I'm looking for those answers. We likewise request some further dialogue on how the loss of the center lane will affect the flow of traffic. Again, I'm not the traffic expert, so we're looking for further dialogue. That lane's used for emergency vehicles, maneuvering around parked cars, turning cars, etc. We do trust that if the experts have put this forward as a suggestion, it's likely going to work for us, but we just haven't heard how. And also, we want to ensure that a plan is in place to service the wider boulevards. We already have concerns from our customers about things like snow removal in the wintertime, debris removal in the spring and fall and summer. How is that going to be handled if we have a whole lot more meters of boulevard? We just want to work with the town to hear how that plan is going to come together. We do feel that the mitigation strategies that are put forward in the report seem far from adequate. There's a mention of select free parking in some lots. That just isn't enough if the downtown is going to be tore up. We request that free parking can be considered throughout the downtown, both leading up to and during construction. We need to be stronger to handle this construction, and that's one of the ways we can get there. We also think that there needs to be better strategies to move around downtown. So once you're there and the parking is free, how do you get from one side to the other if you can't park close to where you're going? I think we can get creative with this. We can have a little bit of fun with this. Perhaps it's introducing programs that stay after the construction is done and that make it a viable place. But I think some strategies need to be considered in greater effort. Further, we request that financial support be considered for the businesses and property owners. The Policy Link report is just one of several reports that indicate financial mitigation strategies are one of the best ways to weather the challenges of construction. We all know this is going to be hard on our downtown. We know it's going to be hard on our businesses. And residents and businesses alike want the businesses to be there when it's all said and done. So we need to have something in place to make sure that we can get through this. There are several different options of what financial mitigation will look like. It's not just, here's some money. There's options that we can look at. We just think it needs to be considered. We also think that greater marketing and strategies to ensure that there's ease and enjoyment of use downtown happen during construction, and that the dollars set aside for this need to be appropriate. They need to be greater than they normally are when we're not in construction, and they need to be in conjunction with other approaches. It can't be, we'll market so we don't get free parking, or we'll get free parking so that money comes from marketing. It needs to be a multi-pronged approach for this to be successful and make sure that the ease of downtown and enjoyment to our visitors remains throughout the construction. We request that we stay involved in developing the mitigation strategies, and we do need mitigation leading up to the construction. It can't just be during. We are in support of building the garage. We'd like to see it built as soon as possible. The parking studies indicated we need it. We know that one of the reasons people are not returning is difficulty in finding parking. We know that 70% arrive by car. I don't need to read everything there because I know you guys have now have a chance to look at it, but we are very much in favor that this garage be put forward and be put forward with urgency. We do require that while it's built, you're open to working with us on what mitigation strategies might need to be in place. We will lose 73 spots while it's being built, so something has to be done to address that, and we're willing to work with you on what those strategies might be. We can't wait until there's a problem to fix it. So I have heard, well, if there's a foot traffic slow down, there can't be a parking problem, at the same time. But what if one is causing the other? We can't expect foot traffic to magically come back if problematic parking is the reason they're not coming. We need to remove that barrier to have people come back in. The parking study indicated it would need to be done within 10 years. That was 2012. That puts us to 2022 that we're looking at having it done. By the time this garage is done, we're looking at likely 2018, 2019, if my estimates are correct. We're not too far off that. The report that was put forward by staff last year indicated it should be done sooner. We're not much sooner than that 10-year time frame, so we do encourage that we move on this quickly. We do request that in building the parking garage, we maximize the available spaces. Let's build it for the future. Let's not build it just the minimum. Let's not worry about saving a small bit of money now. Let's build it for the future. It's cheaper to get it done now and have it be appropriate. Is retail space in the bottom appropriate? I'm not sure. We have some vacancies now. We're going to introduce new retail space when the cultural hub is put into place. Perhaps we don't need that new retail right now. And as a fifth level of parking versus a green roof, we'd rather see the parking. We think there's other green initiatives such as solar panels that can be put in place that aren't compromising parking. We are very much in support of the current status for the Cultural Hub update. We like the direction that town staff are moving in terms of having a larger theatre on the current site and dispersed models of the public gallery and the library still within the downtown. We're also in favor of immediate inclusion of strategies and activities to get us there. I'm very pleased to see the report that's going to be put forward on April 20th, and the town has shown some great initiatives in working with us on that, so thank you for that. Also, we ask, why wait? There are several strategies that can be implemented now. We don't need to wait for the streetscape construction to begin. First and foremost, we can correct the issues with the parking. The new pay-by-plate meters in the lots are horrendous. We agree that we want to get to where we can pay by phone. We're excited by that. But these machines are not usable. Customers come in almost in tears. There's lineups of 7 or 8 deep. They are not working. There's some really easy fixes that we don't need to get into now, but they haven't been put in place, and we've been asking for them since September. So we do ask that there's some movement on this. These parking meters are a disaster. We ask that enforcement is reconsidered. We seem to have a conflicting purpose for enforcement. If it is meant to ensure that there is churn on the street, then it doesn't seem to make sense that it's happening at 9:15 in the morning, 9:30 in the morning, when the streets are dead empty. It doesn't seem appropriate that it's happening at 5:45 at night when we're almost ready to be shuttering our doors. Are we using it for the right purpose? Yes, we want there to be parking availability for our customers when they come, but are we penalizing people who are there when there's lots of availability? And we've yet to hear proper rationale for the zero concession on free parking options. It doesn't have to be across the board. It could be select lots. It could be Saturday. We'd like to hear some more discussion on that. We could implement new street furnishings and beautification now. New garbage cans. There's not going to be a drastic change in what a garbage can is like now and 10 years from now when the streetscape is done. Let's put them in place. Let's beautify where we can now. All of the reports indicate that one of the reasons people come downtown is that it's a beautiful place to be and the walkability. Let's do what we can now to maintain that now, while then waiting 8 years to say it'll look pretty then. It doesn't seem to make sense. We could do things like Wi-Fi the downtown, and there was a mention of decreasing the parking stall length after construction to fit more cars in. Why are we not doing that now if we need more parking spaces? We do request that this plan be thought of for the future, that we not be looking at what problems exist right now and whether or not we need to fix them, but what problems are going to exist in the future. We know we want more density, more foot traffic, more commerce down there. How are these plans going to accommodate that? Let's be far-sighted and not short-sighted. If we want downtown to be a cultural hub, let's start building those offerings now. Again, we have seen some wonderful movement from town staff on that, and we'd like to thank them for that and continue to work with them on that. And we can't look at the parking needs now, but 10 years from now when all this is finished. We can't say there's no foot traffic now, we don't need to build a garage, or there's no foot traffic now, we don't need to correct those meters. We need to get on this now. We need to be strong to handle the construction. We're excited about what it's going to be when it's done, but there needs to be some things in place to get us there. Thank you very much for hearing me today, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Pluman. Councillor Giddings.
Thank you so much for coming out, Charlene.
Thank you.
First of all, can we get a copy of that, your presentation from this evening?
Certainly. I'm sorry, I thought there would have been a paper copy available tonight, or I would have brought it, but certainly.
Great. And I guess this question is for Mr. Cozy. Further to the concerns expressed over the parking meters, that's the validate and some of the difficulties that people have experienced with that.
Through Mayor Burton, we're working with corporate communications and the vendor to modify the instructions on the machines and make it a little easier for people to use the pay and display units.
I've seen these same machines, or what appear to be the same machines, across Canada and the U.S. Is this a standard P&D device that we have, the same as other municipalities?
I would say so. Precise ParkLink is our vendor. We purchased the machines from Precise ParkLink. They supply literally thousands of these machines throughout North America. That's their system. They have the validate button. One thing I'll admit is the instructions on the machine are in small font. They're difficult to read at times, depending on how good your eyesight is. So we're working to provide a better sized, a better viewing instruction document on the machine, as well as some programming features. So we expect to have that in place soon. Ms. Pluman is correct. We've been trying to correct this for some time now, but we're close.
So my assumption is our Oakvillians are experiencing the same frustrations that other customers would be that make use of the same machines.
Through you, Mayor Burton, I would imagine so. The first time I used it, it was a different experience. But like I said, literally thousands of these machines in place throughout North America, and that's the unit they provide. It's used elsewhere, but that doesn't mean we can't make it better, and we're going to make it better.
I guess my point is there must be upgrades or version 2.0 based on other complaints, and that would work with the vendor on that, and any anticipated time frame for having them done?
It's ongoing. That's all I can tell you right now. We expect to have it out as soon as we can. I think the most important thing is the new instructions, and then the vendor upgrades may take a little longer than that.
And the new instructions will be time frame for that?
Sometime this spring, I would imagine. I don't have an exact date, Councillor.
All right, but sooner rather than later.
For sure.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Giddings. Councillor Hooker.
Thank you very much for coming tonight and giving us all your ideas. You say you want to support 2A, but then as I started writing down the things you're concerned about, it's getting rid of the middle lane. But you're okay with that, correct?
Through your worship, we like the idea of the water boulevards for the merchandising space and patios. We just haven't heard clarification to appease our concerns about the other reasons of losing the center lane that concern us, things like where do emergency vehicles go, how do you get around a car that's parking. We just would like some more information from the experts on how this works in other towns and how we're going to be affected by it.
But from a 2-lane versus 3-lane, you're fine with 2-lane. You just want some information.
Correct.
You mentioned mitigation quite a few times. What are you looking for?
Big picture, we need to get through this alive. So we need to have businesses in place when the construction is done. So things like free parking to make it easier for people to come down, things like greater marketing, things like compensation to the businesses, in what form that should take, I'm not here to say, but ways to get us through this. It's difficult. Businesses are going to lose up to 60%, and we need to become on the other side of this with some stores in place.
Okay, parking, you'd like the parking, the 23 million to go in first. Now that was first, four levels above and 3 below. Is that what you want, is the ultimate parking for that? Or I was a little concerned that you're thinking maybe that's not enough. Are you saying that is enough?
Correct, through your worship. No, we don't think it's enough. We think that we should maximize the space right now, build for the future, and build for the spaces we're going to need. It's only a net gain of 239 spaces when all is said and done, and so it seems that we should take this opportunity now to maximize that.
But I think I heard you say, so you want this completed before we start the street? Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct.
So you know that's not going to happen anytime soon then, if, like we were talking a few years away at that point.
When I read the reports the way I read it, if the garage is started next year and finished in 2017, that puts the streetscape 2018, 2019 before it begins, and we're comfortable with that.
Are you comfortable with the timeline for the streetscape, or do you want it done in a faster to get back to normal business? Like, I think now it's basically, I think it's from the report spread over 3 years. Is that what you want, or do you want it collapsed, if it could be collapsed to a shorter time frame?
Through your worship, from my interpretation of the report, it was 2 years, but I stand to be corrected. If it's 3, we want it as short as possible. We need this pain over and done with, so we would look for it to be shortened as much as is reasonable. We do respect that it's a residential area as well, and perhaps working around the clock is a harder thing to do, so we do respect there's some limitations, but as fast as this can be done as possible.
Okay, that's why I was curious. I think it might say 2, but I seem to notice things seem to drag out another season in this, everywhere you do a construction project for whatever reasons.
I think you're reasonable on that.
Thank you. Now, Wi-Fi downtown, you want that also?
Through your worship, it seems to be the way of the future, and it was talked about as something that could be considered as a part of the streetscape. And it seems to be something we could likely do now. It's happening in other cities, and it would be a way to say to customers, we're moving to the future already. We're not waiting until the streetscape is done. So I think it should be something that can be looked at now, because I don't think we need to wait till the streets are tore up to implement it.
Okay, yeah, I liked your idea, like put lipstick on some things temporarily at least, where you mentioned garbage cans. What other things you think would make a difference right now?
I think the garbage cans, we've been asking for a long time to have the newspaper bins eliminated. We are pleased to be working with the town on keeping the streets cleaner, but I think there can be some movement in that direction. In terms of the flowers, we're looking to make improvements there as well, so we're looking to help put some of this lipstick on in the meantime as well.
Now, would your merchants be willing to have extended hours? I do find that people, it seems nowadays, both parents, or it seems with kids, they're both working, so they're not home until evening, and yet the stores are not open in the evening at all. What could we do, from your point of view, to get hours changed maybe so that people knew regularly that, because they can't make it by 6, because there's, you're running kids everywhere, but how can we do that and help you do that?
Thank you. Through your worship, we are working on a couple of things. We have asked the stores to consider staying open later during the sidewalk sale as a test, and they have agreed in majority to do so. So that we will be announcing and promoting that during the sidewalk sale there's extended hours. We're also looking into the option of doing an extended hour evening, let's say it's Thursday nights, late nights, and working with the businesses to see if we can get enough traction from businesses to advertise that as a late night and try it out. The hesitation that we often hear is that there needs to be enough people doing it to be an attraction point. So that's what we're working on, is coming to some agreement with the businesses that this is something they could feel comfortable doing, and doing it in small steps as we can right now.
I like that idea. Even if you do it 1 or 2 evenings a week, I think if we get that going, that would be a big plus for everybody. So I appreciate that. Okay, I thank you for your suggestions also. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. You were talking about the center lane and having some questions. I'm just wondering, were you aware that the Halton Police had expressed concerns about the center lane, and that they're concerned about pedestrians crossing, or that there would be an accident? So they're certainly supportive, as one of the emergency services, for eliminating any parking in that, even if it were to remain. I don't know if you were aware of that or not.
I wasn't, thank you for that information. I wasn't aware. I think the concern was emergency vehicles themselves, getting through. So if they are confident in that, that's good for us to hear that they feel comfortable they can still make and navigate the downtown without that sense.
We don't have one on Kerr Street, and traffic is supposed to move to the side. So I know I sent it to you, and I don't know if it was shared with the rest of your merchants, and I guess that's my question. In Waterloo, the planner there just recently did a survey, and 40% of their customers are coming by car, and 60% are coming by transit, walking, or by bicycle. So did you share that with your businesses as well?
No, we did not.
Okay. Because I recognize that today 70% of the customers are coming by car, but if you want to look forward to the future, if you increase the frequency of transit, and if you increase the ability for people to get there by bicycle, and I know you have concerns about the connections, I think we all do. Hopefully by the time downtown Lakeshore is done, we've built some of those connections. That's the long-term goals. So also in terms of timing, Charlene, I would think that waiting till 2018, 2019 would leave uncertainty for businesses wanting to, or property owners leasing. I'm just wondering, do you want that I know it gives you a window now for business to build up, but I know there was a gentleman who spoke last time about difficulty leasing space because they know that that's coming. So I'm just wondering if we as a council decide that we're going to delay this till 2018 or 2019, is that not just going to prolong the pain downtown because people don't want to open?
Thank you. Through your worship. What I've heard from the landlords is that certainty would help. So if they're able to say as they're leasing, it's this date and you won't have construction from this period to this period. At some point, once that date is set, any vacancies, if it's a year before, a year and a half before, it's going to be a challenge. If the window is great enough, then they can say to their tenants, okay, it's a 5-year lease and you're not going to have construction in that period, or maybe at the tail end of year 5. Gives them that confidence to be able to get through those 5 new years of business, get established before the construction hits.
So you'd prefer it was delayed as long as possible?
Well, I think what we're looking at right now is that if we're doing the garage first, the soonest it seems feasible is 2018. As Councillor Egger pointed out, things tend to trickle a little longer, so it's likely 2019, 2020. So we're in that 5-year window. So we wouldn't want to delay it indefinitely, but get the garage done and then move forward.
Okay, and I just to appease my own curiosity, do your businesses offer free Wi-Fi?
Some, through your worship, some of them do, especially the cafes, that they offer it when they can. So some of them, yes, they do. We hear from customers and we see in other locations. I had the pleasure of traveling to Hong Kong a couple years ago, and it's just Wi-Fi wherever you go. You can sit in a park and work away. We could sit in a town square. They could sit on a bench and they can pull out their phone and they don't have to worry about using their data. So I think there's some really positive things about having it throughout, besides just having to sit inside of a cafe and buy something to get the password to use their Wi-Fi.
Okay, thank you. Oh, so I'm sorry, I had one other question. It had to do with your study that you
this
that
would
you
be coming.
included. Well, no, because I just went to it and I'm looking, and it's because I know I've provided you with numerous studies that show the increase in sales. And as I look at this, it says that there were a number of other policy changes at all levels of government, including increased parking rates, the economic downturn, road closures due to the Olympics, fuel tax increase. Like, they list a number of other mitigating factors. It wasn't just the bike lanes that caused the decrease in sales. So I just want to be clear that this is the only one I'm aware of that shows a decrease. There are certainly numerous ones that show increases as well. So it's not guaranteed that your sales go down when you have bike lanes go in.
Thank you.
That's a question?
No, not really.
That was going to be my question. Thank you.
Do you agree?
Feedback somehow. Councillor Robinson.
Your worship, I'm actually wanting to go back to Mr. Cozy on that meter question again. May I ask him now?
Of course you can.
Mr. Cozy, is this meter, that's what I would refer to as the standard type meter that you see in Toronto and most other cities where I select the maximum time or the amount that I want to select? Is that the type of meter that we're talking about?
Through you, Mayor Burton. Well, it's a pay and display unit. I can't tell you which machine you used in Toronto, but Precise ParkLink has supplied these units in Toronto and Montreal, throughout Canada and the United States. So I don't know if it was the exact same machine you used, but if it wasn't, it was similar. Maybe they had a different button. Maybe they didn't have a validate button on it. Maybe it just said enter.
Okay, thanks for that. So the remaining question is, how much money is this conversion, or not conversion, whatever you want to call it? Maybe it's a form of a printing conversion or instruction conversion. How much is that costing us?
Well, that's nominal. It's just the cost of making some stickers or signs and having them installed on the units. So it's nominal. It's not, I don't have an exact number, but it's very small.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Pluman? Councillor Knoll.
Thank you, Worship. The elephant in the corner for me at the moment is this concept of compensation or reimbursement. You were clear that it's needed, but you didn't have any quantum or any concept of how that would work. One of the questions I'd asked you when you were here last time was, have you done some best practices research with other BIAs and other communities to find out how mitigation measures were implemented? And I would assume that, and you'd mentioned that some communities had opted for some form of financial compensation. Have you done any work in that area? Because at this point, it's hanging there like a big scary balloon. I'm curious because obviously there's been obviously some discussion about it. What are you looking for in terms of compensation? What do you think would be reasonable in light of the circumstances?
Through your worship, there were so many that came forward when I did do the research, Councillor North, thank you, and there were so many that came forward, a variety of options from forgivable loans to low interest loans to straight out, here's a reduction in taxes. There were so many, and within the best practice results that I found, they all seem to have varying degrees of success based on the individual situation of each place. So it was difficult to say, in their case, they did forgivable loans, we should do that too, versus in case, why they did tax reductions, we should do that one, because they were all quite dependent on each area. What I would suggest is that we look a little bit further at each of those mitigation options and see if there is one there that we could use. In terms of the level of compensation, again, it varied as well from as low as $25,000 to several thousands of dollars given to the businesses. Some was on everyone gets it, and some was you have to apply and apply for the loans. So it really varied on the amount based on the program, if they were giving it to everyone or if they're giving it to those who apply. So I think we would have to look a little further at our case and what strategies might make sense for us.
Do you know if there were any financial institutions involved in any of those programs, co-sponsorships or participation by even affected financial institutions?
There were, it tended to be not necessarily major banks, but other financial holdings. I'm blanking on the word, co-op type situations.
Credit unions? Type of thing?
That's the word I'm looking for, thank you.
Okay. On the Wi-Fi concept, I mean, that seems like it's a pretty easy thing to implement almost immediately. Have you talked to Cogeco about that? Because they do a public hotspot program now. Not that I'm trying to promote my own business, but we recently installed one. They gave it to us for free. Have you talked to them?
I have not, so it's good to
You
know
should
they
make that
offer
your first call tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Councillor Noel. Councillor O'Meara.
Sorry, thank you. Just kind of quickly, Charlene, thank you for coming and the information you provided. I know we had a good chat the other day as well, just on the sorts of issues you're facing with regards to this. But I just want to ensure that mitigation, doesn't become a one-way street. We're all partners in this, and when the time for financial mitigation comes, can you ensure us that it will be done in partnership with both the property owners, with the retail, and with the town? Because at the end of all of this, when we come out on the other side, we may have one of the best business economic areas this side of Toronto, and all of the business owners and the businesses at that time, we're all hoping will be benefiting from that and be benefiting from tax dollars that have gone into this. So I just want to be clear from you that mitigation isn't a one-way street from the town. It's everybody involved in this.
Through you, Your Worship, I can speak in terms of the BIA. We are looking to build reserves to help us do mitigation like extra marketing, extra beautification, what have you. To speak for the businesses and the landlords and what money they would give back, I'm not in the position to do that because I haven't had a chance to speak to with them about it directly. What I can say is that they've all indicated a willingness to make this work. They all want to be there on the flip side as well, and they want it to be successful as well. But I couldn't put words in their mouth and say yes, what they would be willing to give without speaking with them further.
Thanks. Well, I would hope that you have an opportunity to do that at some time in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Plewman, for bringing your information.
Your Worship, thank you, and thank you, Council, for having me.
Madam Clerk, the next delegation, please.
Next delegation is Janet Haslett-Thiel, representing the Joshua Creek Residents Association.
Good evening.
Ms. Thiel, welcome. Council looks forward to your information.
My name's Janet Haslett-Thiel, and I'm here on the direction of the Joshua Creek Residents Association Board. Thank you for giving some additional time to review the final streetscape plan that was recommended by staff. I'm here to give clarity to the position that Joshua Creek has. The board has unanimously endorsed the staff's preferred 2A. We feel strongly that the recommendation is a result of a very comprehensive consultation. It involved multiple levels of stakeholders, and there were many opportunities for people to participate. There is something for everyone in this plan, and that's something that the staff should be very proud of. They've picked up on the nuances of people's concern and the strident voices of people's concern, and this is a good plan. We also appreciate the benefits of a curbless street. We understand that's not in 2A, and we would not want to delay just to have curbless streets. So we look to you tonight to endorse this plan, because we believe that your endorsement sends a strong message to residents and the business owners that you're going to invest in downtown, that you're going to make this happen, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and that you can get on with this. We believe that it is doable with the right amount of effort and direction, that you could have shovels in the ground spring 2017. That date has been talked about. That's 2 years out. In 2 years, you can make this happen. In regards to the parking garage, we support that the garage is needed before the construction on Lakeshore. It makes sense. And the need for parking has been repeatedly identified, and I think is now a commonly understood need. We'd like to add, as the staff goes back to do the business analysis, 2 things. One is that there be an integrated parking strategy. So the parking garage, the number of spaces needs to be balanced with the spaces that you will provide potentially with a renovation or a redo with the cultural hub over on Centennial Square. So I think the staff understands an integrated strategy. It'd be nice if they came back with clarity on an integrated strategy. And the other piece is to look for ways to monetize the commercial lands the town owns downtown to help fund some of this important development. So in conclusion, we're asking you to be decisive tonight, to not allow delays to continue, to be proud of the work that's been done by residents and the staff and yourselves and the fulsome consultation. Let's move forward so that we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, so residents can know the infrastructure will be addressed and businesses can plan. Thank you.
Thank you for your suggestions. Are there questions? Councillor Demoff.
Thanks for coming out tonight. One of the things that has concerned me about the consultation, and you're right, there was a lot of it, was right from the get-go, people who came out were told that removing any parking on Lakeshore was not an option. So you cannot look at having bike lanes on Lakeshore because we cannot remove it. So since we've had a number of emails this week when I've asked people what they think of that option, not people I even know. So it's not the cyclist people, but the broader population of Oakville. I would really like them to have the option of commenting on whether or not they want it. And if they don't, that's fine. But what would be the issue if we did it tonight or in the fall and took that opportunity?
Well, I wish I had almost the direct quote from one of my directors who said, people have shown up, people have invested their time, people have spoken up. Sometimes, you know, we can go on and on with a consultation. There's multiple iterations that could occur. I actually disagree with you because in the charrette, we weren't told that I had to have parking on Lakeshore or not. Now, perhaps that's, you know, I had a different experience than you, but the charrette didn't require me to have absolute musts. And respectfully, I think it's time to give clarity and to allow people to feel like, you know, you've spent, since I believe it's November or December 2013, that's a long time. And one of the frustrations some people have is the government moves a little bit slowly. So I normally be the one that tell you to do more consultation if we needed it. You know that. So, but it's time. Let's show them that we can do this.
Thank you.
Councillor Hilger.
Thank you for coming out. In the report, I noticed it states that a business case assessment for a parking structure in municipal lot number 2 is recommended prior to consideration of such a project in our 10-year capital budget. So everybody wants the same thing. Everybody wants the parking first, the parking garage or whatever. And when I read this, I don't think we're quite ready to say that's going to go next spring when I read this report from town staff. Would you agree? That seems to be what they're really saying here?
Well, I'm not going to put words in their mouth, but I would say that if this analysis, which I understand is 60 to 90 days, or maybe a bit longer, if it means the fall, it's amazing to me how the private sector can sometimes move things along quickly. So if it's fall and you say, yes, thumbs up, let's go with a parking garage, I think if you look for options, there are ways to get that built. I was kidding at the back that, please don't use the Clarkson builder for the Clarkson GO station. But whoever's building that hospital, they're building pretty darn quick. Let's go with them. Let's get going.
I'm not sure that particular organization is building roads. I agree with you, though.
But they build parking structures.
I would agree. That has been amazing how that has moved ahead on schedule and on budget. But that's my only concern is everybody leaves here tonight, but I'm concerned everybody thinks, hey, this is great. But I see $23 million. I see the taxpayers coming out of what's that going to impact me on my taxes? And it will, because none of this is covered by development charges at all. So it's all out of your tax dollars on your homes and everything. So
Unless, of course, you find ways to monetize the commercial lands owned by the town downtown, or seek some other option of how to balance the cost.
do you have a Ouija board we could use?
I'm sure you have lots of smart people on staff.
It is hard, though. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Councillor Giddings.
Thank you, Janet. So you'd like it to move forward tonight to get the garage built as quickly as possible, whenever that may be. Does that also help remove part of the shadow that may be looming over downtown and some of the businesses so that the landlords can work on leases and have some surety?
Absolutely. I mean, as somebody mentioned about give and take, we're in the midst of some pain. Let's give them a date. Let's give them a light at the end of the tunnel, and then let's get on with it.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Any others? Councillor O'Meara.
Janet, thanks for coming. I'm hearing you loud and clear about let's get on with it. But if you turn around right now, half the people in this room don't want what you want. And we have to make what could be close to a $50 million decision. So based on proceed right now, or wait and do it the way that we've just heard the downtown Oakville BIA say, give us some time and build the parking garage quick. So while I appreciate your references to how quickly the private sector can kind of mow down people who disagree with them and just persevere ahead,
Oh, for Pete's sake.
do you understand that we are having difficulties right now trying to come to consensus on what is one of the larger builds in our community?
So respectfully, Mr. O'Meara, I don't think 50% of the people behind me disagree with me. And I am here to speak for the board. I am not disagreeing with the BIA. What I heard the BIA said is that certainty is important. What I've heard residents say is it's time. Certainty is important. I'm not suggesting anything different from the BIA in the sense that the parking garage should go first and then Lakeshore should come second. I am encouraging strongly that the minds and the effort and the direction be to move this along. And I think everyone in this room would agree with that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hazlett-Deal, for your information, and thank you, Councillor O'Meara, for obtaining all that clarity. Perhaps tonight, after the clarity, we'll even get to some certainty. Madam Clerk, the next delegation, please.
Next delegation is Danny Morowitz, here representing Chartwell Maple Grove Residents Association.
Okay, and after that? Welcome, Ms. Morowitz.
Thank
Council
you.
looks forward to your information.
Thank you, Your Worship, councillors. I'm going to be actually even shorter than I had planned to be, which was relatively short. Once again, I am here representing Chartwell Maple Grove Residents Association, a community of 1,600 homes within walking distance of our downtown. What is important to us is that the very image of this town of Oakville is defined and visualized by our lakeside location and an attractive and vital main street. Towns have main streets. A central focus for our community that offers a broad array of services, shops, galleries, dining options, etc. Something that all Oakville residents can be proud of. We also are here in support of option 2A. We urge council, as stated very eloquently by the Joshua Creek president, we urge council to move quickly and decisively on the streetscape plan. There's been enough study and consultation and discussion. It is time to pick a date and get started. Further delay only ensures more vacancies and a shabby, neglected appearance on our main street. Lack of progress will only result in turning our livable town into a soulless, centerless conglomerate like Mississauga. That's it.
Thank you very much for that. I think you've drawn a question, at least from Councillor Elgar.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. It's good to hear people come out and expressing their opinion. I just want to hear your opinion on which goes first, chicken or egg, this garage or the main street?
I think the BIA's position that the parking garage should go in to mitigate parking issues before the construction makes a lot of sense.
My concern is then that's going to delay again doing the street though. That's
The point that they're asking for, that we're asking for, is pick a date so that everybody knows what's going to happen and pretty well exactly when. Look at accelerated options in the construction, but get some timeframes down and establish. This endless uncertainty is doing the downtown area absolutely no good. It doesn't look very nice right now with shuttered shops and nothing happening and all this spinning of wheels, which is the way it's looking to a lot of residents right now.
okay. I'm just concerned because I'm thinking they were so far behind on what we're going to do with the parking structure. Then I heard also that in fact they don't think it'll be enough. So if we need more parking spaces. We are going 4 above, 3 below, 23 million. So that's going to take more than probably
there are
a
other
day.
things coming downstream. If you're talking about what happens with the cultural hub and whether there's additional opportunities for parking that can be incorporated into that is another issue. And I think Janet's comment that an integrated parking plan be looked at so that in the long term, are we going to get where we need to be? One of the things that's come up in some of our discussions is with the vacancy of the vacating of the hospital, is it possible to provide parking and a shuttle for staff, for people who work downtown using the hospital garage, to free up a little bit of space as well during parking garage construction downtown. There is a demand for employee parking. Whether that would help, I don't know. I'm not an expert on parking, and I don't know what the demands exactly are of the BIA, but it's just a thought.
A good idea. I kind of like what you're saying. Okay. I guess that was all I wanted. Just trying to get clarification. At the end of the evening, I'm hoping to get some clarification from staff also, and how long before we're going to know what numbers we're looking at for the garage and how many parking spaces. So, thank you. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you, Councillor Elgar. Councillor Demoff.
Actually, it's not a question. It's to try and get some clarity from staff or from you. We didn't get the presentation on the parking garage, but my understanding is all we're going to be looking at is doing a business case to see whether or not we should do a parking garage. So that isn't part of the discussion tonight, if I understand. We're not going to decide to build a parking garage tonight.
The item on the floor is item number 8.
Yes.
And we're happy to hear whatever comments our residents will offer us.
Okay.
And it is true that all these things touch each other, but we are going to come to the parking garage item next.
Okay.
Ms. Morowitz, thank you very much for your time and
Thank
your
you very
information. Madam Clerk, the next delegation.
The next delegation is Bruce Miller, here from The Works Gourmet Burger Bistro.
Mr. Miller, welcome. Did you bring burgers for all?
Yes, they'll be waiting outside for everyone.
Well, in the meantime, we're looking forward to your information.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councillor. I will also be brief. I'm here to reiterate some of what you've heard today, but from a business owners directly. So again, I have my head office proudly in downtown Oakville, which I employ 20 employees, and I also have the restaurant underneath, and we're proud to be there. However, we're not in good shape right now. So in terms of the overall, we are very much in favor of 2A and a decision to move forward on 2A. I'll come back to Councillor, a number of Councillor's questions in terms of timing. So 2A to be able to move forward with and move forward with quickly. I was part of dozens of meetings where inputs were brought in for everybody and anybody. The town did a great job to be able to pull together. It is a plan for everyone. So I believe 2A is absolutely the way to go. However, if you're moving forward on this design, is that my ask is from a timing standpoint, and I floated this idea last time, is to be able to give some certainty. Let's do some math in terms of timing. So parking garage, absolutely I'm in favor of it going first. By the time a parking garage gets finished, it's 2017, 2018. If it drags on, it could be 2019. Rather than going and leaving that in limbo, let's give a defined time. No construction of streetscape will start before a certain date. The landlords right now are suffering because they can't fill these void spaces. And for us to be able to say, yes, it's going to be starting in 3 years, but really it becomes 4 or 5 years, it does nothing for these landlord owners. Is that they need certainty to be able to go out to people that are trying to get these spaces leased today, to be able to say, construction will not start on the streetscape before 4 years or before 5 years. From a business owner standpoint, I would sign up for that lease. If you don't give them the certainty, they are not going to sign up for that lease. So the reality is, even if you push forward, is that if you give a date and it's 2018 or 2019, the landlords will continue to suffer, as will the rest of our businesses, because you don't have a clarity point. Lastly is in terms of mitigation. As you're asking in terms of what mitigation plans work. For me, I've been part, unfortunately, of a lot of these construction pieces. All the mitigation plans and extra marketing have been great, but they haven't affected the business. And so the only one that will matter to the businesses and the landlords is to be able to give tax incentives and breaks. And I'll float out a number. You're looking for a number, it's 50%. So a 50% break during that time period, during construction, to be able to go and give some forgiveness to these landowners and to the actual business owners during the time of construction. It's the only thing that's going to affect their pocket to be able to stay open. And as a business owner, I'm here to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
So thank you very much for bringing that. If I understood your arithmetic or your date math, I'll call it, given the notion of the garage in 17 and 18 or spilling over, if you had a definite guaranteed date that that the streetscape would start in 2019, that would be one of the things you're asking for here. Is that right?
Clarity would be, from a leasing standpoint, to be able to have no sooner than 4 years, because I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of puts and takes and delays and everything else. At least if, as a landowner, you go to a prospective client today and say, please sign a 5-year lease. Yes, there will be construction that starts in the 4th or 5th year, then that's okay. If you go and say, sign a 5-year lease, but construction is starting in the 3rd year, I'm going to say, thanks very much. I'm going to go to Mississauga or Burlington.
But in this context, 2019 would work, a definite date like such as 2019. The council has built more than 800,000 square feet of various construction community facilities, and every single one of them has been on budget and on time. So we're a little more confident, we ought to be, I think, a little more confident of our ability to deliver things on time. We've got a pretty solid 8-year track record behind that. So I'm going to stay proud of our record and think that we can keep it up. So assuming continued success, it sounds to me, I'm just making sure that I heard you correctly, that a streetscape start in 19 would give the certainty that you're looking for.
So I also believe in the town in terms of how fast they can do projects. I don't have a belief in weather and things that are not in their control. I had an example where my landlord, of which I work very well with, they put a scaffolding in front of my building. It was supposed to be there for a week. It ended up being there for 5 or 6 weeks based on the fact that because we ran into weather problems, they weren't able to be able to work safely onto the roof, and therefore they weren't able to get it done on time, on budget. So I do believe in the town in terms of how fast they can do it. I don't believe in the other factors that they can't control.
Okay, well, we'll have to see whose optimism prevails. We'll know when we get there. Any questions, Councillor Elgar?
Yeah, just one. You mentioned the number 50%. What's your last number you would go with?
Sorry, my last or my best?
No, your last. You know, when you, what's your last number? Never mind. I know your best would be 50. What's your last number?
My best is 100. I'm a realist and I'm business, so I did give you the best.
That was your best, eh?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
50% is still a small cost in terms of the relief. It's only one of the costs. We still have labor costs. We still have operating costs. Rent is just one.
I appreciate where you're coming from, and I'm going to be asking staff what that would mean to the taxpayers across the town. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councillor Knoll.
So just to be 100% clear, you're talking about 50% of the realty tax bill, correct?
Correct.
Okay. You're in various locations, and you mentioned that you've gone through this before. Has there been anything in particular that's, you said the only thing that really works is monetary. In your experience and in sort of the hindsight, review of what transpired, is there anything else that you or your franchisees or anything else had thought of that might have worked, or do you have any wisdom to impart that may help mitigate some of these impacts beyond simply writing a check?
Yeah. So
because,
yes.
I mean, just finish my thought. Sorry, because even at 50% rebated tax, I mean, you're right. I mean, like, in my business, the tax is a very small portion of my operating costs. I mean, my single biggest cost is my labor. So what is it that is there some sort of magic bullet that you think that could be employed by the BIA and other merchants to really brace themselves for this?
So the other tactics that I've seen that have helped somewhat is, in fact, advertising. Those dollars are not dollars we have in the BIA budget right now, so that would be an incremental budget ask that would come from the town. Based on our current media state in Oakville, not having a major TV station or a major radio station, that is a problem. So direct mail is about the only other option that I've seen that literally gets into people's hands. And it has to be a message of the fact that downtown Oakville is open for business. Other mitigation strategies around free parking, Charlene's already talked about, I've seen as being effective. And to be able to go and do section by section as best and cleanly as you can so that it doesn't look to anybody that's coming into downtown Oakville that all of downtown Oakville is under construction, is to try to do one section as cleanly as possible, finish it and move on to the next one so that it becomes a small section.
Thank you very much.
Councillor DeMoff.
Thanks for coming out. I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
How important is it to you to have the wider sidewalks and the boulevards versus the town coming in? Because this whole discussion started because there's work that has to be done. So how important is it to get the entire project done with the sidewalks and the roads versus the town coming in and just digging up the road, the region does the sewers, and then repave the road, which is a faster project?
I can only speak on behalf of myself. I can't speak on behalf of my colleagues here, but for me, the larger issue is to be able to avoid the construction period for as long as possible. I do think that downtown Oakville is already an incredibly beautiful spot. I've gone on record as saying it before. I have 25 other shops. Downtown Oakville, in its current state, is the nicest of the 25 downtown locations I'm in Ontario currently. So for me to be able to delay the underground structure is more important for me than the streetscape. If you were to tell me that you're delaying the streetscape even further, that 2019 or 20 is when the underground work starts, and the streetscape doesn't start until a year after that, I would be fine with that.
No, but my question was, forget about, because the reason I was asking you is because you were a proponent of more area for patios, because it was important for your business. So if we just dug up the road, did the paving, forget the wider sidewalks, forget all that other stuff, it's done much faster. So how important is the wider boulevard and the sidewalks and all the beautification part to you versus the not so glamorous work that has started this whole thing that actually has to be done?
The wider sidewalks, for me, based on the town's plan that you've already put together, there are patio options regardless of any street work that needs to be done. I was proud to pilot it last year. I can deem it a success, and I'd recommend it to any restaurant owner to be able to do, as long as the fee structures stay the way that they were last year on a pilot. So I don't need the wider sidewalks because the town, you've already approved a great concept to be able to have patios in place today, this summer.
Thank you.
Welcome.
That looks like the end of the questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Miller. Madam Clerk.
The next delegation is David Mallon, who's chair of the Trafalgar Chartwell Residents Association.
We can tell the residents who live around the downtown care deeply because all of your associations have shown up here tonight. Mr. Mallon, you're batting cleanup for the Residents Associations. Welcome.
I think there may be more following me. Mayor, councillors, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I will try and keep it brief, as my colleagues have from Southeast Oakville. First thing is going to address all three at once, since it's obviously much more efficient to do it that way. Effective public participation. We participated in every single focus group meeting. We went to every one of the public meetings. It was good, it was healthy. Many, many different points of view were expressed. At the end of the day, I think we got as good a consensus as we're going to get. Just a word about our town centre. All of these works that we're talking about are necessary. They define Oakville. Oakville is not a suburb of Mississauga. It's not a suburb of Toronto. We don't want it to become one. We want Oakville to be our town with our town centre. We think it should be a destination for cultural events, for fun events, for shopping, for entertainment, and we just love that people from outside like to come here and enjoy their time here. A few words about Lakeshore Road. Trafalgar Chartwell Residents Association supports option 2A for the reconstruction of Lakeshore Road. We do not support having a centre lane. There are safety issues related to the centre lane, which anybody can see. It's obvious anytime you go there. Trucks parked in the centre lane are a constant hazard, both for pedestrians, people unloading the trucks, and other vehicles. We support option 2A. We think there's a possibility that flexible street construction may be considered based on information brought to us last week that the buses, in fact, may be able to accommodate handicapped access. If that's the case, it would be worth going back to flexible street construction to take another look at it. Earlier in the focus group, we were advised that was not possible because the buses cannot kneel down enough to enable wheelchairs to get on and off the bus. We'd just like to find out what the real answer is, and if appropriate, just take a look at it. We also note there's only one bus actually that uses the western part of Lakeshore Road. It's the number 2 bus. It comes from Winston Park and ends up at Brunty GO Station. I really wonder if it has to go through Lakeshore Road. Could it not go along Church Street? Could it go along Robinson Street? Because those buses really do cause a backup. Those are just items for consideration. One other item. Can we have a shuttle bus loop from the GO to Kerr Street and down to Lakeshore and back up to the GO? I know the number 17 bus does that route now, although it goes up and down Kerr Street. It goes once an hour. Wouldn't it make sense to have one that meets the bus every 30 minutes? and when the train, meets the train every 30 minutes, and when the train goes to 15 minutes, as it is planned to, maybe the bus could be every 15 minutes too. Just makes sense to us. Having said all of that, none of those items are reason to cause any delay in design or construction of Lakeshore Road. Those are issues that can be parallel tracked with the design. The design can be started right away. The surface details can be established over the next 2 or 3 months. There needs to be no delay in starting the design. The construction can start as soon as the design is finished. Our understanding of the construction timetable, based on Mr. Cozy's information, was that design would take approximately 2 years. Construction itself would take a further 2 years after that. We haven't questioned these, although it may be possible to get more clarity on those points today. The parking garage, again, Mr. Cozy's information, the anticipated period for the construction of the parking garage would be in the next 2 years. By the time the parking garage is finished, complete, ready to use, then it would be time to redo Lakeshore Road. That's the schedule as we understood it up until tonight. Seemed pretty simple to us, but seems to have got confused. Parking garage, TCRA, Trafalgar Chartwell, accepts the need for the parking garage now. We are informed there's a backlog of 650 permit applications. That reason alone is enough to seriously consider a parking garage. We would suggest, as an interim measure, please give consideration to the hospital parking garage, which is going to become unused as of approximately December this year. Run a shuttle bus for the permit holders. It's sitting right there. It's going to be unused. I know it's not the best solution in the world, but maybe it would ease some of the problem till the parking garage can be built. The planning horizon for the parking garage itself, and the whole of downtown actually, is given as 50 years. Our concern about the current location for the parking garage is that the land should be assigned to its highest and best use. So we're saying, please don't rush into this parking garage without 60 to 90 days business case assessment. Look at the other surface parking lots you've got downtown. Look at what this is going to look like, feel like, and how we're all going to feel about it 20 years from now. We don't want to see some structure go up to 10 years from now we'll have to tear down because everyone's appalled with the way it looks. We would like to have something that will last and be something we can be proud of for the next 30 or 40 years, if that's possible. We've only got one chance to get it right. Let's take 60 or 90 days to try and get it right. But again, none of this needs to delay any of the engineering or construction required for the parking garage. In our opinion, it's needed as soon as possible. To talk briefly about the cultural hub, although of course it's less urgent and we understand that. We support the cultural hub report. We support the distributed facilities downtown. We think it provides an excellent both linkages and boundaries to the cultural area downtown. It facilitates reconstruction at Centennial Square. It utilizes existing town-owned properties to a large extent. We have a concern, money, it's going to be expensive, and there are many other demands on the town's budget. We don't have an answer to that. We also think the riverfront vision is going to be very important going forward as part of the new harbour study, because the riverfront really has to be a feature in downtown. Just to sum up, as far as Lakeshore Road and the parking garage is concerned, my old boss used to have a great way of finishing meetings when he wanted people to get off their butts. And he simply said, okay, guys, we've reached an agreement. Let's go out there and get it done. And I guess that's my closing message. Let's get it done.
All right, well, we have a couple of questions about getting it done. I'm going to start over here with Councillor Adams.
Thank you so much for your comments tonight. Could you help clarify your comments on item number 9, the downtown parking garage study? The recommendation, I presume you've read, but you made me wonder by a comment you had around, don't just go ahead with this, consider the other properties that we've got downtown and whether we should do something with them instead. Are you saying that you do support number 9 as written, or do you suggest that we do something different?
Can't recall number 9, but if
I will
could-
read it for you. That the Church Street Commercial Parking Garage Feasibility Study by Urban Strategies, Inc., as detailed in the report from the Engineering and Construction Department dated January 27th, 2015, be received. And 2, that a business case assessment for a new downtown parking garage be undertaken and presented to council prior to consideration of the 10-year capital forecast later this year. So the second part being the get it done part. So the real question is, are you satisfied with the location that we're talking about, or do you think we should, as part of our assessment or business case, be looking at more?
We think you should be broadening out the study slightly, not a huge amount, but somewhat, to include the other surface lots that the town owns and any other property which is potentially convertible or usable, owned by the town to servicing parking. We don't see it as a huge expansion. We just think, you were trying to plan downtown in a way that at the end of the day, it comes out as a great place to be. And you can't just take one site in isolation without looking at the other stuff on Church Street at least.
If we were considering all of the other surface lots for other, let's say for other purposes, I think you said use them to their best use, whatever those might be. Not necessarily parking garages. Am I getting you right?
Well,
am I paraphrasing you correctly?
Yes, the Cultural Hub study indicated that Church Street has the potential for being somewhat of a gateway to the Performing Arts Centre and Centennial Square as it is today. That would seem to imply to us that there has to be some thought given to Church Street, how it's developed, and what is the appropriate mix of uses on Church Street so that it does in fact provide that concept of a boulevard and an entrance into the Performing Arts Centre. So all we're saying is just think about those other surface parking lots and can they be sold? What should be their best use so that we're getting the highest and best use of those lots, including the one for which the parking garage is currently slated.
Thank you so much.
So just on that point, Mr. Mallon, let me read more slowly what the councillor read you. Item 2 says that a business case assessment for a new downtown parking garage be undertaken and presented to council prior to consideration of the 10-year capital forecast later this year. And as I understand that gives staff quite a degree of flexibility to widen or enlarge their view. And I just want to stress that it then comes back to council and the public for consideration and input. And you would understand it that way, right?
Yes, Mayor, if that gives the staff the latitude to look at those other surface parking lots, that's fine.
Okay. Now, hands please over here. Councillor Hutchins and then Councillor Demoff. Any over here? Okay.
Thank you, David, for coming. Appreciate it very much. In the parking, I've heard the TCRA is very keen on making sure that if a garage is put on Church Street, that we take the long view and not try and just have a cheap sort of parking garage on the surface only and not dig it down, which is, of course, the much more expensive and longer-term option. Is that correct?
Yes, we simply are saying that whatever the result is, it needs to be consistent with the forward planning for Church Street, consistent with the business case results that the staff have yet to do, and something that will be durable and sustainable going forward for the next however many years it takes to redo downtown Oakville. Now, highest and best use, we're not sure that parking is highest and best use, but we defer to others to make that judgment.
Would you also be interested in having the stores and shops on the ground floor, so to speak, so to make a better streetscape for church?
With respect to the BIA, we recognize today that there is an excess of retail space due to particular circumstances. We're coming out of a long period of uncertainty. The retail business is changing due to circumstances, many different circumstances, some of them way beyond our control. But we rather think that the short-term excess of space is just short-term, and longer-term there will be a demand for retail space as the marketplace picks up, as the economy picks up, and not having retail at ground level may prove to be a rather short-sighted effort. So our view is, let's be sure of what we're doing. We do think that normally the way commercial development is done is you've got parking below ground, retail first floor, and then commercial or residential above that.
I have just one other question. I happen to know that you were in construction for many years and have done some very large projects. It seems to me that the 2 years to do the design work for the lakeshore seems to be a long time. Do you feel that it could be speeded up at all?
Comments were made earlier by one of my colleagues about the difference between the private sector and the public sector. There are differences, no doubt about that. In the private sector, you're given an assignment and you're given the time to do it. And yes, you have to get on and get it done. And for what's involved here, were it just a simple private sector assignment, I would sort of expect the time required would be less. However, I'm not competent to judge what the pressures and strains and difficulties and integration of several, both private utilities and the region requirements, et cetera, are. So I would look to Mr. Cozy to answer your question better than I.
I think the translation is there's a brotherhood of engineers around the world.
Yeah.
And they stick up for each other.
May I ask you, Mr. Cozy, is there a chance of making this shorter rather than having 2 years?
We've said all along the design assignment would be 18 to 24 months. The reason we selected the spring of 2017 as the earliest possible date is because of the winter season. The design could be completed in advance of that time, but we wouldn't be able to start till late February, early March. And if we had a winter like this year, we wouldn't be starting till the end of March, early April. This is a 24-month. I can assure you it's a 24-month process before we can get to shovels in the ground on Lakeshore.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hutchins. Councillor DeMoff.
You mentioned, first, thank you for coming out. It's always a pleasure having you here. You mentioned a shuttle bus, and it's an idea that's come up before. It's one that I actually had talked to the BIA about doing at one time and had connected them with Oakville Transit. But of course, there's a cost to running that. So who do you think should foot the bill if it was feasible to do that? Should it be the Oakville taxpayers to pay for a shuttle bus, or should it be the businesses to get their employees down there?
I'm not really competent to answer that question. I am, part of the idea came from speaking with First Gulf, who were here earlier, but I guess their item was deferred. They are participating with the town in providing a shuttle service at peak times from their proposed new development at the top of Chartwell Road and South Service. That seems to me to be an exemplary way to start breaking some of the traffic gridlock around Trafalgar and Cornwall and Trafalgar and Queenie. The shuttle bus from the parking garage at the hospital would serve a different purpose, but I would hope that if it were deemed feasible and if the BIA thought it would help the parking situation downtown, that between the town and the BIA they'd try and work something out which is satisfactory to both parties.
Okay, thank you. Because if they're not paying for it, the taxpayers are paying for it. We only have two options to, or a private business is the example that you've given. Thank you.
Mr. Mallon, thank you very much for all your information tonight.
If just Councillor Elgar asked me for some information on appraisal definitions last time I was here. I apologise, sir. I didn't bring it. I'll give it to you. It's here now.
Thanks very much.
Madam Clerk, next delegation, please.
Next delegation is Boyd Waits, who's president of the Oakville Lakeside Residents Association.
I misspoke. Boyd is batting cleanup. Welcome, Mr. Waite. Council looks forward to your information.
Good evening. Yes, you get all Southeast Residents Associations tonight. So my name is Boyd Waits. I'm president of OLRA. Our Residents Association basically is the area south of Lakeshore Road, below downtown, between 16 Mile Creek and Chartwell Road, and the lake to the south. We represent over 50% of the residents in that area. So Oakville Lakeside Residents Association has been involved in the streetscape study since the beginning. We've been involved in the focus group sessions, stakeholder meetings, public meetings, all the way through. We're very impressed with the process that the town has gone through and the inclusiveness of that process and the public outreach that has gone on. So getting to the point, at this time, we're in favor of option 2A, as put forward by town staff, as recommended by town staff. However, we would also like to stress the following items that we believe are important to the continued vibrancy of the downtown and to mitigate as far as possible the impact of construction to business residents and visitors in the area. Firstly, parking. So during construction of Lakeshore Road, there will be lost parking spaces, limiting access to downtown. And it's important to take all measures in order to ensure that both the existing parking situation and the worsened parking situation during construction are mitigated to the greatest extent. In view of this, we believe that the town should be looking at ways that the new parking structure study can be expedited to the extent we believe it is important that a new parking structure be available ahead of the construction of the streetscape in downtown. We also urge that the parking structure study be extended to incorporate a study of potential commercial development of all the town-owned lots along Church Street, to include commercial development incorporating parking. We believe there are revenue opportunities that could go some way towards lessening the capital costs to the Oakville-wide ratepayers involved in this project. Second point is timing. So OLRA believes that the project duration should be minimized in order that the disruption be contained to as short a period as possible, in order to lessen the damage that will certainly be caused to business in the area during construction. We strongly encourage the town to plan construction so that the overall duration of construction is minimized, even if this means a delay in the streetscape project. It is extremely important, however, that landlords, businesses, and residents alike are provided a clear timeline for start of construction of the streetscape and the duration in order that, people, landlords, businesses can plan towards that date, that timeline. Third point is regarding bike lanes. We're supportive of the bike lanes as proposed in 2A, and we agree with the sharrows on Lakeshore Road, and not dedicated bike lanes on Lakeshore Road. We all know that bikes will certainly access Lakeshore Road. However, we don't believe the space is available to have dedicated bike lanes, and that the sharrows would serve as a way to identify to vehicle traffic that bikes may also be on the road. As a bike rider myself, I'm happy with that solution. So as far as the project, as previously stated, OLRA has been involved in the streetscape study for a long time. We are impressed by the town's willingness and project management in order to provide as much opportunity as possible for stakeholders and the public to provide their input. The result is the plan you have before you. Many concepts along the way have been discussed, and it would be disappointing to us if the project would have to go back through public consultation processes again, as we would believe it would need to if major alterations are made at this late stage. We also believe that revisiting the process would cause further uncertainty around these plans, raise costs to ratepayers, and the time to get to a formal solution, and therefore uncertainty in the downtown. So to finish, downtown needs these plans to go forward, and we appreciate you listening to the residents, and we urge you to move forward with the plans.
Thank you very much, Mr. Waite, for your information. Questions, Council? Councillor Ilger.
Can you give us a little information of what you call major operations?
In what context? Sorry.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. What was your context of major operations?
Alterations. So,
Thank you.
For example, if we start changing the bike lanes or the parking areas, etc.
No, I heard something different when you corrected me. I appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Elgar. Anyone else? Thank you very much, Mr. Waite.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, next delegation. Council, are there any other members of the public with information on this item for Council, or would you like Council to deliberate? Yes, sir. Please come down, identify yourself, and share your information. And it'll help us a lot if we can get you in front of the microphone. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. His Worship, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, I moved to Oakville in 1954, and in 1958, I leased a building from Mr. Dunwoody, and I opened up my flower shop in 1958, and I was located in that particular location for 10 years. I then moved to what was then the Oakville hardware store, and I bought that building, and the flower shop was in that particular building up till the late 80s, and then it was changed to restaurants. And just recently I lost, of course I'm being a landlord, I lost my tenant, and after it had been a restaurant for 25 years. Anyway, the parking is a problem. And the reason that I want to emphasize that is that it's already done, I'm sure, particularly by the lady of the BIA. Lack of parking has been a problem for most of these years that I've been involved in a town that I love so much. I don't think that I have to emphasize that the town core needs more parking. I know that there is the parking on the drawing board, and I for one hope that this will come to realization. You know, downtown is the apple of the GTA, and parking is not just a shortage, but it's also a problem at the time. And they were talking about the parking ticket machine earlier. I've noticed time and again that older people, like myself, have difficulty going. Now, of course, I have a parking permit, but they're sometimes taken, and I would have to just take a regular parking space, which is fine. But the problem of going to the parking meter and then back again, to place the ticket on the dashboard. Then I've seen ladies with the children, having put the children in the stroll back to the parking meter, to the meter machine, and come back again. It's really a difficult problem, and I hope that that can be talked about and taken care of. there needs to be a better deal. There are so many obstacles that reduce the downtown traffic. And so where do they go? Where do they go? The natural aid to go to the shopping mall. I have a friend that operates a food store in the food section at the mall, and he's paying over $200 a square foot. And he makes a go of it. He's making good money. Downtown Oakville, the rents are from $35 to $60. And they close the store, they walk. I've experienced it myself. So maybe it's time to reconsider aggressive tagging perhaps of vehicles as well. I got a $450 ticket because I was parking the handicap sign and I didn't have to show the ticket was behind the visor. You know, one other thing is when people come downtown, oftentimes they come down for 15, 20 minutes. Can we institute an idea, perhaps give the people the first 30 minutes free parking? They would just love it, and it would bring the people down. Do we really, then another thing, do we really, no, I think that's pretty well covered. Do we really need the extra revenue in such a prosperous town, especially at the expense of business? Forget it. Downtown is a jewel. Good traffic is one of the reasons that business owners do so well where there's lots of parking. You know, the foundation of the business in downtown Oakville has been the merchants. We've had a tremendous selection of merchants, and they've done a tremendous job. You know that as a merchant, we're not on a 40-hour week. I've had my own operation there for 30 years. My work week wasn't 40 hours. My work week was 60 hours and 70 hours, and that's the reason that we were successful. Now that the store is empty, and so many stores are empty, also I understand, and I've already found out about this, that the taxes are lowered for the landlords where the buildings are vacated. Well, how much money is the town losing right now because of the empty buildings? 50,000? 100,000? Wouldn't it be better to put that into parking? I think all of these things that we should consider. There's many details that I can't go into details because I've been involved in the town of Oakville now for 57 years, and I love this town. I raised my family, and I wouldn't want to live anywhere else but Oakville, even if it was cold winters and lots of snow. It is a lovely town, and I think you can all be proud of it. The only thing that I would like to see is that, and I'm just referring to the parking garage. All these years we've been talking about parking. I've got a couple of good friends, Sean Garvey, Bill Orr. He did coffee with him many times, and there were lots of points that were being discussed. But if we talked about the town of Oakville, you know what was the top topic? Was always parking. And I'm talking 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago. We're still talking about parking. We talk too much. Why don't we just get into action? Thank you. I think I finished my talk.
You did very well. Thank you very much. But would you please give us, and we have a question for you, but would you first give us your name?
My name is Joe, and the last name is Fett. Joe Fett, V-E-T.
Thank you.
And I've been a taxpayer in this town of Oakville since 1954.
That's a good long time, and I'm sure everyone appreciates the contribution.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Elgar, you have a question.
I do. First, I'd like to thank you for coming out. And so you are an actual landlord now?
I am, yes, yes.
Okay.
It used to be the Oakville hardware store.
I got it.
Remember this?
Okay.
Well, that's the
My question-
building I took over. And I'd like to just quickly mention that it's Gordon Gravel and Al Gravel and Gord Friends. They were running that particular hardware store.
Okay,
And as Gord came to my store 5 times, he said, Joe, you have to buy that building.
I think you made probably a
I
very good
did.
decision. But my question is, with regard to doing this, the Main Street, getting it done, do you want the garage first, or do you want the Main Street done?
I would, thank you for asking. Parking.
It's all about
Parking.
parking. I got it.
I'll tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen. You build parking, you will bring the people downtown. Once you got the parking and the people, the money will come. Then you can work on the streetscape. But I'll say is P, parking. And that's what it's all, that was 20, 30 years ago.
Okay, but also I've heard people want certainty. So if you're leasing out a property or in your building, if we say we're not going to start the actual street until 2019, is that, and the parking is done, is that okay, or do you want something sooner? A specific date?
I think it's wonderful that that you're discussing streetscape as well, the planting, the shrubs, the flowers, maybe a pedestrian mall. I think these are all nice, but get the people down first. Get them to pay for it. They will pay for it if you bring. How come that at the mall they're paying $200 a square foot and $40 downtown is too much because the people go out of business? I mean, let's face it. Let's face the reality. It's business. You're strictly talking business. If you cannot make the money, if you can't bring the customers down, you will not make the money. I lost a good restaurant just now, and it cost me a bundle each and every month that the store is empty. It really does. Fortunately, I'm at that age that whatever benefits downtown, it may not benefit me that much anymore, but it will be my family, my kids, my grandkids, and all of you, and hopefully you as well. And I'm sure it will.
I thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Elder. Others?
It
Thank
was
you very
nice.
much,
It was
Mr.
very
Gett.
nice, and thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Nice talking.
All right. So, Mr. Gett actually registered to be a delegate on item number 9, and we're happy to hear him now. And as we said earlier, they tend to connect together anyway. But on this specific thing of the streetscape, any others? All right, I'm going to confine it to table. It's 9 o'clock. There's a chance you'll get some action tonight, I hope. Members of council, do you have questions? Councillor Robinson?
Your worship, my question is hopefully allowable. But I'm asking you, sir, if you can supply us with a total updated cost of the entire project broken down by major phases and sources of funding.
If you pass the staff recommendation, you'll get that in September.
But this is April.
We don't have that yet. If you've looked at the report, that's, if you will, premature. What we're choosing on the streetscape is which design. You heard at the last council meeting that they're all the same.
I understand that, and I believe they're about the same. So that's why I figured it was an appropriate question, because whether we go for 3A, 3B, or 2A, it's going to be the same in the streetscape design. So I was looking for an overall cost broken down by phases and funding.
I can't give you that yet.
When can I have it in September?
When we do the capital plan in the fall, as we've always intended, that's when you'll get that.
Thank you, sir. I'll stay with you on that.
Yeah, stay tuned. Councillor Demoff.
I actually had a question for staff about some mitigation measures. One of the letters that we got, and she's a friend of mine, her husband's in a wheelchair, and one of the reason she doesn't go downtown, and I'm sure it's an issue for other people who are in wheelchairs, is accessibility to the stores. from what I understand, some of the merchants have temporary ramps that they will put out, but they're not always convenient, nor, is there anything the town can facilitate with merchants to allow accessibility for people who are in wheelchairs to access the stores?
Yes, the design will look at entry-level grades at the storefronts, and hopefully we can address those issues with each store independently.
But that's when we do the street. I'm just wondering, I mean, for example, I went to a restaurant in Toronto called Signs, where they had put up a temporary ramp that was encroaching on city property. But I'm just wondering, it's for 4 years, we still are not allowing people who are in a wheelchair access to the stores, and it's a market that they don't come downtown because of it. I'm just wondering if there's anything in those 4 years that we can look at. Sorry to put you on the spot. But it's a letter that was put on our desk tonight as well.
Councillor, really, it's not part of the item that's before us. I would suggest that a request for a report might be a better way to proceed to get action on that. Any other items on item 8? Councillor Elgar.
I appreciate that, and thank you. What are we voting on? Are we voting on what we have before us right now, which is item 8, which is 1, 2, 3, and 4? Or are we voting on what's in the staff report?
You're not voting on anything until someone moves a motion. There is a motion in the staff report, and there is a motion which we put on the screen, which has been developed among some members of council. But
so that's
until something gets on the floor, you're not voting on anything.
Okay, that's good, because I was thinking we're talking about voting, but nobody knows what it is. So it looks like Councillor Demoff has something.
Councillor Demoff. Adams was next.
Okay.
So I know we don't have anything on the floor yet, but would you mind putting up the proposed item number 8 wording that we had earlier on the screen? I wanted to ask our staff about some of the terminology that we've got there. Okay, so assuming somebody is going to move this, and assuming that maybe we'll have a debate about whether we want to continue with the new option 3AB, or whether we want to continue with only option 2A. If council wished to proceed with only option 2A, in other words, approving option 2A as being the preferred surface streetscape feature, what would the appropriate terminology be? Is it still necessary to have staff be directed to commence the engineering design work for the subsurface features separately and distinctly, or would it be appropriate for us to move the original recommendation that the downtown transportation streetscape study as detailed in the staff report from the Community Development Commission dated February 17th, 2015 be approved? Would that cover items 1 and 2? I presume that staff developing alternatives for the phasing of construction for council's consideration is still a useful and appropriate thing. And the fourth component there, if option 2A is approved as the preferred option, it appears to me that it's not necessary to have the results of the public consultation on the streetscape options, because we would have already chosen that. But we would need to have the results of the construction phasing alternatives be presented back to council. Is that correct?
That's essentially correct.
And staff, you don't need to have a separate component about the subsurface features in that case. Is that correct?
That's correct. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the recommendation 1 and 2 would be replaced with the staff recommendation, or if you were to proceed with only 2A. And 3, we could continue to do in terms of the phasing, and we would consult back to council on just the phasing option in the fall of 2015.
So you'd be omitting the first part of number 4, were you?
We would be omitting part 1 and 2 of this and replacing it with part 1 in the staff recommendation. Is that correct? The part 2 of the staff recommendation, that staff proceed to undertake the engineering design work for the Lakeshore Road East Reconstruction and Streetscape project. Obviously, it's not subject to the budget approval because it's already approved. Is that component required, or is that component associated then with part 1 and or the phasing?
Pardon?
Part 1 in the staff recommendation is to approve the concept. So that's the concept of how it's going to be designed. Part 2, or clause 2 in the recommendation, is to then start the engineering work to implement what was approved as part of the streetscape study. So we would require 1 and 2.
Okay, thank you. I think that clarifies it. So if
Councillor,
yeah,
if that's the course someone wanted to go on, they would move the staff recommendation and add to it
3 and 4.
3 and a
part of
modified 4.
A modified 4. That's right. Thank you. I appreciate the clarification.
Councillor Giddings.
Mr. Mayor, just for clarification, we have a couple of motions hovering around the table. Do we have
There's
anything?
no motion till someone makes one.
We don't.
You have the floor.
All right, I was just curious, Councillor Adams, is that something that you wanted to put on the floor?
I'm sorry. A side conversation distracted me, Councillor. Would you repeat your question?
I'm just anxious to get something on the floor.
Yes, I would move that as I was discussing onto the floor, if that's preferred, yeah.
All right. Councillor, so it's moved. Councillor Demoff.
Well, I thought I was after Councillor Adam, and I was going to move what was handed out tonight, but obviously it's too late to do that now.
Depends on the outcome of Councillor Adams' gambit here.
Well, can she not make an amendment to the motion on the floor?
She can certainly amend.
Yeah.
You can't amend to reverse. You have to defeat. So if there's a piece in there that she'd like to substitute, she needs to, the procedure is, by request, any motion can be broken, any piece of any motion on request can be broken out and voted separately. So I sense that there's 2 competing number 1s here, right? The number 1 on the screen just says do the engineering design work. The staff recommendation says approve the 2A design. All right? So if you, I mean, really everything turns on what happens on item number 1. Councillor Adams.
So just to clarify for everybody, so everyone knows what we're talking about, what I am moving is the staff recommendation, item number 1, part 2, removing the word subject to the approval of the 2015 capital budget. I am then moving part 3 of what's on the screen before you, that is that staff develop alternatives for the phasing of construction for council's consideration. And I'm moving a modified number 4, which will now read, the results of the construction phasing alternatives be presented to council for decision in the fall of 2015. I hope that makes it clear for everybody.
Thank you. Any speakers to this motion? Councillor O'Meara and Councillor Demoff.
I actually have a question of staff with regard to that. I think what I've heard is there is a desire to see the parking garage go first, and then we'd be looking at potentially 2018, 2019. How does that impact staff's engineering design work if we were to then turn around and wait on the engineering design work that we'd be getting back to implement 4 or 5 years down the road from now?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. If you approve the motion from Councillor Adams, we would immediately start the detailed design work for the Lakeshore Road streetscape. The issue with the garage is a separate matter. If council wishes to build a garage, you will be making that decision sometime later this year as part of the capital forecast review. And we would then initiate some process to design and procure for the construction of a parking garage. If the desire is to build the garage before the start of the Lakeshore Road construction, that may delay the Lakeshore Road project anywhere from 12 to 24 months. It all depends on, whether we go with the design build option with the garage, how quickly we can get shovels into the ground and complete. So I don't think we can do both projects at the same time.
And I guess this is where the issues intersect and we're bumping in. And I know engineering design work it has a shelf time. So that's really what I'm asking about. If we go ahead and direct staff to direct you to do the engineering design work, then knowing full well that's not what we're voting on right now, but when it comes back to us in the fall to discuss the garage construction, and then that will eventually impact when we are able to put to work the engineering design work on the streetscape. I mean, are we wasting? Not wasting, but are we going to have to redo this in 2018, 2019, engineer design work?
No, absolutely not. The design has to be done anyways, and it's just a matter of holding off on the construction tender if we go with the garage.
Thank you.
Councillor Demoff.
Thank you. So I'll speak to the motion, and I would like the first item separated. Given this is the most important decision that we will make and will be a decision that's going to last us for certainly my lifetime, doing the design work now and delaying a decision on which option to choose until the fall will not delay anything. It will also give us the information on the parking garage by then, which is a very important component of what decision we make on this. Without having the information on the parking garage, we're making a decision on Lakeshore Road completely out of context, and I don't think it makes sense to me to make a decision that will, all of these people in this room, it will impact our lifetime. It's important that we look forward, not backwards, and I recognize that that there's a sense that we have to be able to drive a car and park it right in front of a store, and if you're looking forward in other municipalities in North America that are looking forward, they're looking forward not to be parking cars. I've mentioned to the mayor and some of the councillors, I can bring in speakers to speak to the BIA if they wanted to from Madison, Wisconsin, where they say that you know, the former mayor there, and I've quoted him before, where he's never seen a successful downtown with free and ample parking. And if you think of any downtown that you know that's successful, that's the truth. The planner who did the study in Waterloo will be happy to come and speak to best options for a downtown to bring people in, not by car. They only have 40% of their customers now are coming by car. And if you've been to Uptown Waterloo, you know that it's a very successful area. In terms of the phasing, I think that's probably the most important part of this in terms of the businesses and the residents, but particularly for the businesses. And to be honest, there's a part of me that says, why don't we just dig up the street and repave Lakeshore and forget all this other stuff with the sidewalks and everything else? Because obviously the businesses are struggling downtown, and my worry is delaying it till 2019. While it sounds good today in terms of leasing, in 2 years' time, you've still got a 3-year window, and then you're just delaying leasing issues for downtown. But I do think the phasing is probably one of the most important things that we will look at. So if we can defeat number one and be able to take a look at a couple of options, one of the things, without the information on the parking garage right now, I think we're deciding prematurely. So that's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Councillor Demoff. Councillor Robinson,
Just to make sure again, Your Worship, Councillor Adams' motion therefore includes the staff recommendation number 2 with all the exact words. No, 2. Staff recommendation 2.
Councillor Robinson, the only thing before us at the moment is the first part, item number 1.
Right.
In the staff report, not on the screen, in the staff report, the Councillor Demoff has severed this from the rest of the motion. So all you have to think about is number 1.
At this time?
That's right.
Okay.
So
all
the
right.
only thing on the floor is the motion by Councillor Adams for item number 1. The next speaker is Councillor Giddings, and then Councillor Demoff.
Yeah, it's okay.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, it's all a D. No, we're interchanging.
We've had 8.
Go ahead, sorry, Dave.
We've had 18 months of study. We've had feedback and input from over 2,000 stakeholders, from the BIA, from individual business owners, from RAs, from residents, from an exhaustive process. We've had public meetings, open houses, interviews, focus groups, consultations, a few consultants, newsletters, Let's Talk Oakville, and articles in the media that have informed people and provided them to provide us with input over the past year and a half. My concern is that a new look at new options will cause further delays and cause further unknowns that can't be tolerated by the businesses downtown. I believe that the possible loss of 100 parking spaces on Lakeshore would be detrimental, and combined with the insurety over leases, over when will they decide what's going to be done. I'd like to bring closure to it tonight and remove that one cloud that we're able to. There will be super sharrows on Lakeshore. There will be bike lanes on Robinson and on Church, about 75 paces away from Lakeshore, less obviously if you're cycling. A strong and vibrant downtown benefits all of us in Oakville, and for that reason, I'll support the motion.
Councillor Dudek?
Thank you, through your worship. I wonder if I could just ask staff, just confirmation in terms of if we're going forward with what Councillor Demoff is suggesting and looking at option 3AB, basically we won't be starting the design engineering of anything until that is addressed, correct? Like, in other words, if you have direction from council this evening to go forward with 2A, you would be using from now to the fall to come back with the design and the engineering of how to make that happen. I'm just trying to ascertain, are we looking at another 6 months after that, once we come back with the public consultation for looking at a 3A, 3B, and then we're adding another 6 months on to that? Do you know what I'm asking?
Well, I'm going to answer it maybe in two ways, just so I can cover it both ways. The original staff recommendation was to proceed with option 2A and to give us the authority to move forward on the detailed design. It would take us 18 to 24 months to complete that process. During that time, you still have to approve the funding for the streetscape project as well. There is no present funding in the capital forecast for Lakeshore Road. There's only funding in place for the detailed design. So the first 4 to 5, 6 months of the detailed design, we'll be doing some preliminary work that we need to do, investigate subsurface conditions. We would reinforce our construction estimate, which is $9.25 million as per the staff report, and we would bring that forward to you as part of the capital forecast work later this year. At that point, we need to approve the funding in the forecast to start this project in the year that you want it to start, be it 2017, 2018, whatever. Now, to answer the question the other way, if you were to ask us to move forward and do some additional public consultation on options, new options 3A and 3B, we would still start the engineering work because there's a lot of subsurface work that we could do initially. We would have to stage the RFP in a certain way that we don't get too far along until we make a decision on A and B. We would then report back to council and say, yeah, 3A is a great idea or it's not, or 3B is a great idea or it's not, or let's just stick with 2A. Make a decision then, and then we just move along. I think there's float in this schedule that we could go both ways here, if I could use that term.
Okay, my only concern is we traditionally do not like to make major decisions over the summer period. And so my concern is if we undergo public consultation, and that what you had suggested was my sort of question, is there something we're going to be doing regardless of what option we go with? And you're saying we have to do a lot of the investigation in that. But my concern is the approval of that 3A, 3B, 2A, on top of the fact that we're losing that summer window for a decision to be made, and are we looking at a further
you know, I'm just trying to play it out in terms of if we can be at the same time frame.
Well, they're fair points. We either have to complete the public consultation before the summer or very early after Labor Day in order to get back to you in time for the capital budget process.
Councillor Elgar.
Thank you very much. I don't know, maybe I'm the only one reading it my way, but when I read item number 1, I don't see why I couldn't support item number 1 because it mentions its subsurface features. It's not the surface features, which is what we have prettied up with up top.
Councillor, you're not reading the right number 1.
Okay, read it to me.
That the downtown transportation, it's on page 4 of your agenda, that the downtown transportation and streetscape study as detailed in the staff report from the Community Development Commission dated February 17th be approved. That's where you find 2A recommended.
Okay, I was reading number 1 where it said the staff be directed to commence the engineering design work for the subsurface features. So that's the one, that didn't make the cut, but I guess that's what Councillor did.
There's 2 different ones. Councillor DeMoff prefers that you defeat item number 1 on page 4 that's been moved by Councillor Adams so that she can ask you to approve the item number 1 on the sheet that's handed out and I think is still on the screen.
Can I maybe get, does Mr. Cozy say they can still do the work under Pam DeMoff's motion of the subsurface, or is that going to delay things if we split it up? What I'm hearing, it's parking.
We would start the detailed engineering work, but we could defer the decision on what the surface looks like until the fall. I believe this is what Councillor DeMoff is suggesting. But we would have to complete, Councillor Duddick is correct, we'd have to complete this, would you like us to carry out this additional public consultation in July and August? I didn't think you would. So we would have to complete this before the end of June, or we'd have to complete it by early September so we'd have a chance to get back to you. Because if we don't have a decision by the fall, then we are going to push this past the 2 years.
I thank you for the clarification on which one we're looking at in 1.1 and 1.1.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there other first-time speakers? Councillor Hutchins.
Yes, as you know, I've been very vocal about widening the sidewalks as one of the major key areas that I think is important. But I don't want to delay this either. Option 2A does give us the widest sidewalks, and that's why I believe majority of people chose that. I would have liked to seen at least one layer of parking taken off it, but that's not in the options, so I'll be voting for option 2A.
Thank you, Councillor Hutchins. Any other first speakers? Any second speakers? Councillor DeMoff?
Actually, just had a question of staff. Do we have any meetings already planned in May or June regarding downtown that we could piggyback the streetscape onto?
We have meetings planned on the cultural hub, actually one public meeting near the end of June on that one. So there is some opportunities to schedule. I think what Mr. Cozy is saying is that if we miss that window, it then slides us into the fall. And if we slide into the fall, actually, we were looking at bringing the capital budget forward about the middle to the end of September. So it would give council an opportunity to decide on the capital budget before they move into the operating. So it may also have an impact on the capital budget timing if we miss the window in June.
But if since this is, as we all know, they're all tied together, if we have a meeting planned, or we're working on one for June on the cultural hub, to include, and as I mentioned, I've got speakers that can come in to speak to the benefits of the different transportation options, to be able to piggyback that on at the same time would still let us meet the window of consultation and still come back in the fall to design the above ground part, right?
In terms of the consultation program we are setting up for the cultural hub, it was one public meeting that we were looking at doing on June 24th, I think is the date. So I think for this particular project, given its nature and the detailed aspects that we're looking at, it would need to be a separate consultation process from that one meeting. It would be too much to do in one meeting time. So we'd look at a different type of program to set up on the earlier part of June and perhaps into the end of May.
So I have a first-time speaker and a second-time, so Councillor Knoll.
Thank you, Worship. Just a comment before we vote. I'm going to be supporting, I was told to touch this. No, I shouldn't touch it. Anyway, I wanted just to make this comment before we vote. I'm voting in favor of Councillor Adams' motion on number 1. And my summary of my rationale is as follows. 1, the professional staff are telling us this is the way to go. 2, the residents who have to pay for it and shop there are telling us this is the way to go. 3, and in my mind, because of my own bias, the people that have to actually work there, operate the businesses, and make it all work at the end of the day are telling us to move on this option. I think it's a no-brainer. So I would like to move forward. Let's get number 1 approved, and let's move on with this project.
Councillor Duddick and then Councillor Adams.
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. I wonder if I could ask, is there any option whereby if Councillor Demoff was able to provide, along with staff, a drop-dead date? In other words, it has to be completed, the public consultation, by such and such a date. What's the drop-dead date for you in terms of moving forward with what we want to do in the fall? Is it end of June? If we were going to public consultation in a separate course of action, are you?
I would suggest to you that the end of June would be the time frame that we would have to have concluded the public consultation. That may mean that we're reporting to you either through the summer in terms of the conclusions of that, or first thing in September.
But that's getting very, very tight with what you're talking about with the capital projects. Okay.
Councillor Adams, you would be a second, and Councillor Grant's a first, so...
Your Worship, I'm the mover, and I'd like to speak last, if that's okay.
I'm trying to make that possible.
Perfect.
By extending first-time courtesies to Councillor Grant.
And I would prefer that too, that Councillor Adams speaks after. I will be supporting the motion for many of the reasons that my colleague Jeff Knoll has mentioned. A month ago we'd said we need to hear some more things from the public. Here we are a month later and we're saying, wait, no, there's more ideas. I think it's great that so many people on council do show their seriousness for this issue, but we are talking about bricks and mortar, not the whole future of the society. You know, downtown can be saved through bricks and mortar in a welcoming space, but it's going to take more than that. It's going to take our cultural study. It will take parking. Oh, he left. Oh, well. But it's going to take the parking, and it's going to take smarter ways of getting people to shop in downtown Oakville. I mean, there's things like Beacon and Collect and Swarm that was just purchased by Groupon recently. There's trends called showcasing, where people will have a bricks and mortar presence for an online area that people can go and check out stuff before they order it online. Just different ways, but I really think that we need to make it welcoming, and by studying over and over again, we're losing this vision of making the place livable and giving everybody some conclusions, some ideas to where we're going. If we keep kicking the ball forward, we're almost like Lucy, holding it in front of Charlie Brown, waiting for you, and then like, no, sorry, we're not going to decide right now. We need to come to a conclusion. I think we need to do it tonight. So.
All right, I think, any other speakers before we let the movers have last say? Councillor Adams.
First of all, I wanted to thank our staff and the various consultants that have been working on this project for a very, very, very long time. You've done, I think, an extraordinary job of consulting with members of the business community as well as the various residents groups that are involved. And that's a very difficult thing to do, and I think you've done an extraordinary job of it. So there's a few points I want to make about this particular initiative. First of all, the issue of the street parking, I think, is an important one. The cost of replacing the street parking into a structured parking garage, whether it be above or below ground, is extraordinarily high. And in effect, the street parking that's there is the cheapest kind of parking that we can provide. And removing it creates a demand for additional, very expensive structured parking somewhere in the downtown. And hence, this option allows us to maintain that inexpensive option. It's also an option that has been gone through all of this enormous consultation over the last more than a few months, year and a bit, and it's come up with support from all of the residents associations in the area, all of the business groups, and the business organizations that are actually working there, and the various employees as well, I think. And so with all of those issues before us, I think it's appropriate for us to give some certainty around where we're heading, what people will eventually see, even if it isn't going to be in the next year that the construction starts. At least people understand what they're going to be getting into if they're signing a lease. They'll know what will be there in 5 or 10 years when the construction is done. And without that, you're still in a position where you're trying to sign leases where you don't quite know what's going to be coming forward for the next 6 months or 12 months, however long that additional consultation would have taken. So with respect to the next decision that's before us with respect to the downtown parking garage feasibility study, that has to happen as well. I have previously noted concerns around the cost of that, and I've also expressed concerns around the cost of the overall long-term plan and the need to have the financing plan arranged and the business case for those things. So this is the first step to that, and I look forward to staff coming back with the additional information later this fall. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. All those against? The motion carries. Councillor Adams, the rest of your motion, do you want to just review it for everybody since we spent a lot of time on the first part?
Yeah. So what we've just passed is that the downtown transportation and streetscape study as detailed in the staff report from the Community Development Commission dated February 17, 2015 be approved. And the second part now that we'll be talking about and voting on is that staff proceed to undertake the engineering design work for the Lakeshore Road East reconstruction and streetscape project, that staff develop alternatives for the phasing of construction for council's consideration, and 4, that the results of the construction phasing alternatives be presented to council for decision in the fall of 2015.
Thank you. Speakers? I'll put the motion. Oh, Councillor Robinson?
Sorry to keep doing this to your worship, but in the fall of 15, are we going to be able to be told what everything's going to cost us?
That's what the capital budget is for. Yes, sir.
Well, we approved the capital budget now, but we're going to do a phasing budget, the 10-year forecast in the fall.
No. The 10-year capital budget
Yeah.
is on for September.
Right, that's the fall.
And this information will be in, the staff will present all of this around your cost question then.
All right, in the fall.
Yeah.
And we'll have those numbers.
You're not, when you vote, if you vote for this, you're not voting for any money that hasn't already been voted for.
I understand that, but there's a lot more to come.
Yes, you're still right about that. That's
Okay.
right. There's more to come.
Okay, all right.
So I'll call the vote. Councillor Elger.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, since I know now it's parking first, that will all come to us in one bundle along in the fall of 2015.
Yes,
And also-
Councillor.
And also in our non-capital budget, but our operating budget, we would also have the same information related to what we're going to do to help out the tenants down on Lakeshore. That would all come together to us.
The capital and the operating are two different budgets.
Oh, I think I know that.
The operating budget is where I think that other, mitigation would appear, and that's when that would be decided.
But we can't decide the capital budget without having the operating budget at the same time. Honestly, we have to do this properly so that the tenants downtown are aware of whether they would be getting and when they will be getting compensation for loss of business if we're going to do that. I heard 50%, but that kind, I would hope we would have capital budget and operating budget coming to us with the same information. We have to.
Well, Councillor, I can't offer you, it's not part of this motion. I don't think it's proper in this motion. This is a matter of moving forward to that stage. At that time, you could insist on whatever you need to insist on.
Well, I hear what you're saying. I'm a little disappointed because we can look good approving a capital budget, but if we're not doing something on the operating budget, then I think we're in trouble.
Councillor, if the construction were to be in, let's pick a year, 2017, wouldn't you use the 2017 operating budget?
I would like information, not just in the current year, but to see how we're looking 5 years out. And the tenants know also. And then they have dates when we would do it, because my concern is if we can approve it in the capital, but if we don't have the operating to assist what they're looking for, we vote against that in the operating, then the capital's going south really fast. I hear what you're saying.
It does not follow that the capital goes south. That's a council decision.
That's exactly it. And I agree with you fully. It is a council decision, but I think as a council, we want to go into this with our eyes wide open. I think that's what Councillor Robinson wants, so.
Councillor, your eyes will be wide open and you'll have the information. Councillor Adams?
Just want to try and help on this particular issue. I understand that there's a desire to discuss alternatives for helping the businesses as they go through the process. I agree that it's not appropriate for it to be part of this discussion tonight because I think that staff need to consider that in greater detail. But I do believe it would be appropriate for it to be part of a report through the budget process so that we can consider what those costs are. Because we're not dealing with that this year, and we won't be dealing with it in effect next year because the construction is unlikely to proceed next year, we have lots of time to ask our staff through the budget process to provide some mitigation options for us to consider. There would be costs associated with that in the operating budget, and you'd need to budget for it, either funding it through reserves because it's in effect a one-time expense, or providing for tax levy funding for it as the alternative, basically. But one way or the other, that would be the appropriate mechanism for it to come through the budget process.
And I thank you for that. I just want to make sure everybody goes into this with eyes wide open. Thanks.
That's the Oakville way, Councillor. Mr. Town Manager? CAO Green?
Operating costs going forward. I think when I look at the direction to bring the phasing in and the capital, I think that's a time we'd actually try to look at what those mitigation measures and what staff would recommend. Whether that would be exactly what is carried forward in the operating, but I think we do need to feed that information as part of the capital budget and the forecast. So we would try to bring you those figures as well at that time.
All right. Then, all in favor of the motion on the floor? Opposed, if any? That carries. And thank you very much to one and all, our businesses, our residents, our staff and council, for really, this is an historic moment, and we're talking about how we're going to revitalize our downtown to be the greatest magnet of retail sales in the entire Southern Ontario area for the next 50 years, as it was for the last 50 years. So it's good on all of us, and I thank everyone for the contributions tonight. So now, Council, we turn to item number 9, the downtown parking garage feasibility study. And here the recommendation is that the feasibility study be received and that a business case assessment for a new downtown parking garage be undertaken and presented to Council prior to consideration of the 10-year capital forecast later this year. Are there speakers? Or Councillor Dudek moves it. Councillor Elger?
I'm sorry, I have a question first. If she's moved it, that's fine. Question.
I had another hand first, but let me just make sure. Councillor Demoff?
I have a question.
You're first.
Just based on some of the comments that were made tonight, this motion, is this a business case for the parking garage that was outlined in the report, or are you looking at all of the space that the town owns and coming back with a proposal for a parking garage?
The intent of the business case actually is outlined in the staff report, and it's broader than just this particular garage. Some of the comments actually by the delegations in terms of its implications on the cultural hub, looking at how a parking garage in relation to all the other parking supply we have downtown needs to be clearly understood. So the scope of the business case is quite broad to include all of those elements that were referred to tonight.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Elgar?
Thanks very much. I guess I just heard what Jane said, Ms. Closey, but I'm wondering if staff, when they're coming back with something, if at this point in time, it'd be good to do a bit of forward thinking, and if we overbuilt the foundations, that would allow levels to go up higher, if they take that into consideration also, if they are building a parking garage that's going up a number of stories. If somehow the foundation is there, you could go up higher at a later point in time also. I wonder if we could look at that also.
We could look at that, recognizing there is a height limit within the downtown of the 4 stories.
Appreciate that.
I just want to follow up on something the Commissioner said. What I heard you say implies that you're going to be presenting the integrated approach that the residents associations were all asking for on parking.
That's correct.
Thank you. Councillor O'Meara, did you have something?
Yeah, thanks. I had a question just for staff as well. If maybe you can outline for us, but for the residents as well, when the business plan comes back to us, that prior to consideration of the 10-year capital forecast plan, if the streetscape piece is going to wait until the parking piece, maybe you can just explain how that process unfolds in terms of getting it into the 10-year capital plan and prioritizing it and getting that on its way.
Sure. With the previous recommendation, we now have a design that we're working on for the streetscape component of it. As part of the business case, we'll be looking at, in essence, it's almost as broad as how do you provide for parking within the downtown the most effective way. Parking structures, parking lots, and taking into consideration the cultural hub, because in the fall, we'll be reporting back to you on all of those elements, so you can look at the integration of them, how they fit together, and how the timing and construction of all of those various elements can fold together, which then fits directly into the capital budget that will be coming forward at the same time. So come the fall, you'll understand almost from a master plan perspective what can occur downtown, what is the phasing or sequencing of those elements downtown, and what is the cost of them, as well as the affordability within the capital budget.
And those elements will be presented to us in conjunction with all other capital projects in the 10-year plan and decided accordingly. Is that correct?
That's correct. The capital budget looks at the 10-year capital budget for all the projects the town is considering, so you can understand the implications of these individual projects on all the town list.
Thank you.
I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That does carry, and unanimously too. Thank you, everyone. Now we have the item 10. Oh, I'm sorry. I made a faux pas. Stefan Will? I jumped the gun on the vote there. I wanted to hear from you first.
My name is Stefan Will. For 40 years, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity of saying a few words about the planned parking garage on Church Street. A livable community needs a beautiful, vibrant downtown. It adds to the quality of life and attracts new businesses and tourists. Parking garages, by their very nature, are not beautiful. A bad example is provided by the parking structure near the GO station. It is an eyesore that will stay for us for a long time. A similar mistake must not be repeated downtown. I understand that parking garages are needed to accommodate our car culture. However, let's not sacrifice prime above-ground real estate for parked cars. Parking belongs underground, and the above-ground space should be used for better purposes. It may also make economic sense to use the available space more intensely. An attractive office building would be preferable to a high-level parking structure, and office employment would bring some vitality to the downtown core. On the other hand, retail stores are not likely to succeed at that location. The old post office may be converted into a gallery, and it would be too bad if a gallery would have as its neighbor an unsightly parking garage. Unfortunately, an underground parking garage would not be ready at the construction time of Lakeshore Road. This problem may be mitigated if the road construction is started at the east end and done in a 2 to 3 years period. During the initial construction phase, the town may try to obtain from the Catholics in the Andrew Church the use of their parking lot on weekdays. And one of my previous speakers mentioned the parking garage at the hospital land that could be also used during the construction time of the first phase. Later, when construction begins on the west side of Trafalgar Road, the underground parking garage may be ready. If, contrary to this recommendation, parking levels are going to be built above ground, a visibly pleasing facade is absolutely essential and has to blend well with the surrounding buildings. I also suggest that the town acquires the adjacent lot from CIBC and extends below ground parking to that space. If this lot should remain empty, the facade of the new parking garage on the east side facing George Street would present itself as a naked wall until the CIBC lot is developed sometime in the unforeseeable future. A glaring illustration, I'd like to show that picture here. A glaring illustration of such a naked wall is presented by the west facade of the Commerce Building at Lakeshore and Allen Street. There is another example on the other side of the bridge, this semi-rounded building, if you come from the Burlington side. Thank you very much for considering my suggestions. Let's be bold and visionary and build something we can be proud of.
Thank you very much. I hope in September, when we see the staff's suggestions, that you'll be pleased.
I hope so.
Thank you. All right, Council, the next item is deferred from March 9th and 10th in your agenda on page 5. And you can strike from the recommendation item number 2 that $300,000 be added to the Oakville Arena Rehabilitation and Senior Center Capital Project, because you've already done that when you approved the budget earlier this year. And so that leaves only to receive the report. Councilor Giddings moves that. All those in favor? Oh, Commissioner.
Mayor Burton, I must apologize, I gave you incorrect information earlier today. The second recommendation in the report was as an information item to the Budget Committee. And the Budget Committee didn't actually deal with the $300,000 necessary to build the design work of the fire hall into the arena. So we would need to have council consider that recommendation tonight for us to move forward on that.
Our bad. Okay, it's back in. Councillor Giddings, are you still moving it? Debate, discussion, questions, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that carries. Council, we need a motion to rise and report. Councillor Lapworth, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that carries. I rise and report that the Committee of the Whole has met and made recommendations on consent items 1 to 5, public hearing items 6 and 7, discussion items 8 to 14, and confidential discussion item C2, noting that confidential item C1 was withdrawn and confidential item C3 had already been dealt with at an earlier special Planning and Development Council meeting on April 8th. A mover and seconder for my report would be in order. Councillor Lapworth and Councillor Elgar, all in favor? Opposed, if any. The report is adopted. Council, is there any new business of an emergency, congratulatory, or condolence nature? All right, thank you. Then a mover and a seconder for consideration of the bylaws, Councillor Robinson and Councillor Dudek. This is authority for the bylaws listed in the agenda, as listed in the agenda. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? The bylaws are adopted. This completes our agenda to the best of my knowledge and belief. And I want to thank everyone for the very generous contributions of time and information. It is terrific working with everyone in this town, and we are adjourned.